Naruto. Six Paths of the Senju Family. Chapter 21. Orochimaru, have you thought it through? Are you sure you will no longer serve as my bodyguard and go to the battlefield to play house with your disciples? In a dark underground base below the Hokage rock, Danzo, the leader of Konoha roots, opened his left eye and stared at Orochimaru, who should have been on the way to the Rain Country. Orochimaru was currently dressed as a Konoha Jonin, which was incompatible with the image of the uniform black robe mask. Danzo-sama, Naoki is a very good child. Taking him to the battlefield to gain some experience will be of great benefit to his future. I have obtained Hokage-sama's consent for this matter. And Naoki is the grandson of the First Lord, and his sister Tsunade is my good friend. So I can only say sorry to you. Danzo-sama. Besides, Danzo-sama still has a capable subordinate like Ryoma-kun by his side. If Orochimaru is missing from me, it will probably not have any impact. Orochimaru spoke and glanced at a root member who was now behind Danzo. The man was wearing a mask, and his appearance was indistinguishable. But the sound of countless insects crawling under his clothes proved his identity as a member of the Aburame clan. Orochimaru, have you forgotten your pursuit? Only by following me will you have a chance to come into contact with that power. Hiruzen can't help you with this. Danzo's exposed single eye narrowed slightly, and he said pointedly. A meaningful smile appeared on Orochimaru's face, staring at Danzo's right eye which was covered by a bandage. Danzo-sama, it is Hokage-sama's order to stop the wood release experiment. As his disciple, I dare not offend the teacher's authority. Or, the injury to Danzo-sama's right eye has affected your perception of your identity. Do you think you are Hokage? When Danzo heard Orochimaru's strange sarcasm, his hands hidden in the shadows suddenly clenched, and his left eye shot out a cold light, staring at Orochimaru. So, are you really going to betray me and join Hiruzen's camp? Orochimaru shook his head, with a sunny smile on his face that shouldn't appear here. Danzo-sama is joking, this is not a betrayal. We are all for Konoha, aren't we? There are still many things waiting for me to deal with on the front line of the Kingdom of Rain. Counting the time, I should be arriving at the Kingdom of Rain soon, so I will take my leave now. Goodbye, Danzo-sama. After Orochimaru finished speaking, before Danzo could react, his body turned into a ball of smoke and disappeared with a bang. HMPH. Do you really think that becoming the commander-in-chief of the battlefield can make you an equal with me? You actually only sent a shadow clone to see me. Ryoma. Danzo-sama. Please give me orders. Aburame Ryu immediately took 2 steps forward and knelt on one knee in front of Danzo. Danzo looked at his loyal subordinate and gave an order in a tone without any emotion. Since Orochimaru has decided to betray his roots, there is no need to worry about him anymore. Take people to find that brat from the Thousand Hands clan and bring his body back. If he resists, you know what to do. Go. Yes. Aburame Ryoma didn't ask any more questions, and the body kneeling on the ground disappeared instantly. Danzo retracted his gaze and reached out to touch the bandage covering his right eye. The cold and evil power coming from under the bandage made his face tremble uncontrollably. Kage's eyes are indeed different from those of ordinary Uchiha, and the body has begun to be unable to bear it. The research and transplantation of first-generation cells must not stop. Since ordinary Thousand Hands people cannot withstand the erosion of the first-generation cells, let's use the bodies of his direct blood relatives to conduct experiments. Hiruzen, do you think that by removing Orochimaru from his roots, I won't be able to conduct experiments? HMPH. I will let those of you who oppose me know who is the true successor of Teacher Tobirama's will. I will let you sit in the position of Hokage. One day. Danzo's figure gradually disappeared in the darkness, and the dark underground space became dead silent again. After studying the system's newly activated battlefield function and looking at the bodies of the 2 rain ninjas lying on the ground, an idea suddenly came to Naoki's mind. It wasn't that he was suddenly interested in corpses or things on corpses, he just wanted to test how much the enhanced water escape had increased in power. Well, I just happened to clean up the battlefield. Looking at the pool where Makoto killed someone and dumped her body, she quickly formed a water escape seal on her hand. Water release water crush wave. A stream of water rose from the foot of the rope tree, rolled up the bodies of the 2 rain ninjas on the ground, mixed with large pieces of dead branches and leaves, and rushed toward the pool. The effect doesn't seem to be obvious. It seems like the water is just flowing a little faster. Looking at the pool filled with water, Shengshu touched his chin, looking dissatisfied. Whatever, there will be opportunities for promotion in the future anyway, let's talk about it later. The battlefield had been cleaned up, and there was nothing else to deal with. Naoki simply turned around and chased in the direction Makoto left. Just as he was about to jump onto a branch, a black figure suddenly appeared from behind the tree in front of him and made a strange handprint on the rope tree in midair. When Naoshu saw the circular seal formed in the hand of the person who suddenly appeared, he was startled and subconsciously wanted to dodge. But the attacker's timing was very tricky. He took advantage of the moment when he jumped into the air and had nowhere to use his strength, and unleashed the ninjutsu that he had been preparing for a long time. Heart-turning technique. A cold voice came from under the white fox mask of the stranger, and a spiritual power passed through the circle of the handprint, amplified into an illusory figure, and silently crashed into the body of the rope tree. The rope tree froze, unable to control the movements of his body, and fell straight down along with the inertia. The fox-masked ninja who was performing magic on the rope tree also softened at the same time, and was caught by his companion hiding nearby and held in his arms. Ryoma-sama, it seems that Sora succeeded. Shuashua, two figures appeared next to the rope tree. The ninja holding Sora jumped down from the tree and respectfully reported to Aburame Ryomahui. Yeah. Take care of Sora. Mission accomplished, take this brat back and hand it over to Lord Danzo. Jinbei, who was standing next to Aburame Ryoma, said hesitantly. Lord Ryoma, after all, he is the grandson of the First Lord and a disciple of Orochimaru. Lord Danzo does this. Before he could finish his words, the ninja holding Sora looked at him with a look of horror in his eyes. Under the control of Aburame Ryoma, countless parasitic insects swarmed on the speaking ninja, biting and biting crazily. Ah! Lord Ryoma, why did you attack me? Kill your colleagues wantonly, Danzo-sama will not let you go. The speaking ninja was bitten by countless insects, and all the chakra in his body was like a punctured balloon, disappearing almost instantly. Wrapped in the black swarm of insects, it rolled on the ground and let out bursts of wailing. No one can question Danzo-sama's will. Those who resist, die. Cold words came out of Aburame Ryoma's mouth, and her cold eyes looked through the mask without any emotion. Take this brat and let's go. Looking at the remains of the corpse that had been eaten clean by the swarm of insects, Ryoma Aburame stretched out his hand and took the parasites into his body. He bent down and carried the rope tree that had fallen to the ground on his shoulders. He turned around and told his subordinates who were holding Kong that he was going to leave with the rope tree. That subordinate had long been frightened into a cold sweat by Aburame Ryoma's cruel methods, and he didn't dare to refute. He hugged Kong a little tighter, and he couldn't help but envy Kong in his arms. I really envy you, you didn't see how that guy died. Kong in his arms seemed to hear his thoughts, and moved slightly, opened his panicked eyes, and with a loud sound, he spurted out a large mouthful of blood, dyeing the mask scarlet red. He struggled to poke his head out of his companion's arms and yelled at Aburame Ryoma. Sir Ryoma, be careful, he is not controlled by my secret technique. Time goes back to the moment when the rope tree was hit by Sora's heart-turning technique. People are often like this. After solving a problem, their vigilance and defensiveness towards the surrounding people will drop greatly. Just like the rope tree that had just cleared the battlefield, he didn't realize that someone was ambushing him in the dark nearby. When he jumped towards the branch, he was hit by the heart-turn jutsu. The moment Naoki was hit by the ninjutsu, the hairs all over his body were about to explode. After all, you still haven't escaped the fate of dying as soon as you enter the battlefield. Haha, it's really ironic. Even though he already had strength, he was still ambushed by the enemy because of his carelessness at this time. My life is indeed destined to fail. Naoshu watched helplessly as the spiritual body entered his body and took over most of the control of the body in an instant. He smiled wryly at himself, ready to accept his destined fate. Just when Kong's spiritual body entered the brain of the rope tree, he was ready to completely take over the body. The yin escape chakra that had been silent in his mind suddenly trembled, like a cat that smelled fishy smell, and instantly pounced on Sora's mental body, firmly grasping the spiritual tentacles he had extended into his mind. Live. The yin escape chakra is like a long whale sucking water, entwining around the figure formed by Kong's spiritual body, greedily absorbing the rare pure spiritual power. Sora's spiritual tentacles extending into various parts of the rope tree were quickly blocked by the yin escape chakra spreading throughout the rope tree's body. Only a vague human form was left, like a rootless duckweed, struggling hard under the attack of the yin escape force. Shungshu's body regained freedom in the next moment, and he was overjoyed. Just as he was about to control his body to fall to the ground, the system in his mind suddenly sent out a prompt. Ding! The host triggers new choices. Option 1. Gain control of the body and immediately counterattack the enemy after landing. Reward. White eyes. Option 2. A tooth for a tooth, an eye for an eye. Devour all the spiritual bodies that enter the body, causing the enemy's spiritual death, and launch a counterattack against the enemy after landing. Reward. 8-Gate Dunjia. Option 3. Use Yin Escape Chakra to trap the mental body entering the body and pretend to be controlled. After landing, observe the situation and wait for opportunities. Reward. Sharingan. After so many triggering choices, Rope Tree has concluded a rule. Generally, system selection will be triggered only when multiple changes may occur in the future. And the rewards given are often related to the current environment. For example, if you are ambushed by the enemy this time, the system will give you 3 rewards. The reason for being ambushed this time was that the rope tree lacked the ability to sense and detect. The system simply provided 2-eye techniques, Sharingan and Byakugan, to make up for the rope tree's shortcomings in this area. As for the 8-Gate Dunjia, they ignored the enhancement of perception ability and just let him continue to be reckless. After hesitating for a while, Naoshu gave up the 8-Gate Dunjia and White Eyes and chose the third reward. The White Eyes cannot be hidden, let alone running around with them in the future. Even when encountering Hazashi now, the source of the White Eyes cannot be explained. Although the 8 Gates Dunjia is powerful, the rope tree's Yang Dunjia ability is obviously not enough to offset the negative effects of opening the 8 gates, so it is not advisable. That leaves only the Sharingan. On the one hand, the Sharingan can be opened and closed freely. On the other hand, dynamic vision can make up for the rope tree's lack of speed and perception, and can also greatly enhance his resistance to illusions. The host has made a choice. Reward. The Sharingan has been distributed, please check it with the host. It has been detected that there is a large amount of yin escape energy in the host body, and the Sharingan is evolving. Waves of numbness and soreness came from his eyes. The rope tree resisted the urge to touch it with his hands and fell straight to the ground without moving. While digesting the physical changes caused by the Sharingan, he listened to the conversation between the several ninjas who ambushed him, and understood the cause and effect of the matter. It turns out to be Danzo's root. No wonder the rope tree died on the battlefield despite Orochimaru's protection in the plot. Although he was killed when he rushed into the enemy's detonating talisman trap, the mutilation of the body afterwards is probably inseparable from Danzo. Now it's interesting. New and old grudges are added together. Duanzo, I didn't bother you yet, but you targeted me first. After today, just wait for me. Naoki scolded Danzo bloody in his heart, but he didn't notice that the mental body that was pulled by the yin escape energy had become illusory. I was shocked, and I hurriedly controlled the yin escape in my body to loosen my mental body a little. Kong's spiritual body felt as if he had received an amnesty, and he used up his last strength to escape from the rope tree's body. As soon as Kong's spirit returned to his body, he spat out a large mouthful of blood and spoke a warning with difficulty. Seeing that he could no longer pretend, Naoki lay on Aburame Ryoma's shoulders, quickly formed a few hand seals, and reached out to press on his back. Wood release, cutting technique. Aburame Ryoma heard Sora's warning, and years of fighting made him subconsciously choose the most correct course of action. Ignoring the movements of the rope tree on his body, he raised his hand to form a mudra, and his body instantly turned into countless parasites. The next moment, ferocious wooden thorns rose from the ground, stabbing the flying insects into pieces. Aburame Ryoma appeared in the distance, stared at the wooden thorns drilled out of the ground, and let out an exclamation. Wood release. A flash of surprise flashed in Aburame Ryoma's eyes, and she waved her hand to release a large swarm of insects, and the figure disappeared from the spot. Now that you have awakened Mu-dun, I can't let you go. Your presence will bring greater power to Lord Danzo. Secret technique insect jade. Densely packed insects flew towards the rope tree, and the root ninja behind him also put the air in his arms on the ground, jumped on the branches and started to form seals. Wind release wind cutting jutsu. The Sharingan is absorbing the yin escape energy to evolve, and it cannot be activated for the time being. It is impossible to find the direction where Aburame Ryoma is hiding. Seeing the insect swarm and the root ninja coming from behind, the rope tree had an idea, took out a kunai and drew it in the palm of his hand, quickly forming a series of hand seals. Psychic art. With the completion of the psychic technique, Roshu's body stepped on the huge snake head that suddenly appeared under his feet and rose to a high place, just avoiding the incoming attack. Shinya's huge red body appeared in the field with a burst of smoke, and the terrifying pressure suddenly swept the entire place. The black swarm of insects collided with Shinya's huge body, making a clanking sound. Shinya turned his head and opened his mouth to face the swarm of insects and spat out a ball of venom. The venom containing terrifying magical energy enveloped the insect swarm, and countless insects instantly turned into gray-white stone insects. Their bodies fell stiffly from the air, as if there was a rain of stones. The wind blade released by the root ninja hit Shinya's body and dissipated in the air without even damaging a single scale. Shinya's giant tail swept back, immediately turning a large forest into broken wood. The ninja quickly used a substitution technique to escape. Feng, who was lying on the ground, didn't even hum before being crushed into a puddle of flesh by Shinya's tail. Ding! The host killed a Chunin and received the reward. Genjutsu, Naraku no Jutsu. Shungshu didn't expect that the ninjas Shinya killed would also be counted on his own head, so he patted Shinya's head and said hello with a smile. Thank you very much, Shinya. A flash of light flashed in Shinya's single eye, and the snake's head was slightly raised. Kid, did you call me out just to deal with these bugs? With your strength, you should be able to deal with them easily. The bug was released by someone, and now that person is hiding. My perception ability is not strong, so I want to ask you to help me get rid of that enemy. How about it? Can you do it? A disdainful snort came out of Shinya's nostrils. HMPH. Kid, don't underestimate me. My body is full of magic chakra, and my ability to perceive energy is beyond your imagination. No one can escape from my perception. Shinya's snake eyes narrowed slightly, and Snake Shin stretched and contracted a few times in the air, as if it had received some information, with a glimmer of light in its eyes. Found it. Hizashi and Makoto, who were on their way, suddenly heard a loud noise coming from behind and looked back. A giant crimson snake was waving its tail, bringing up huge plumes of smoke and dust, raising a forest to the ground. A figure could be vaguely seen in the smoke and dust, standing on top of the giant snake's head. It looked like a rope tree. Oops. The rope tree must have encountered an enemy again, even Shinya has channeled his spirit. Let's go back quickly. Makoto felt anxious, turned around and ran towards the way she came. Hizashi followed her and said solemnly, Makoto, be careful. You know the strength of the rope tree. Even Shinya has channeled it, which means that the enemy we encounter this time may be very difficult. Makoto nodded, and the two of them accelerated towards the rope tree. Found it. Shinya sneered, opened his mouth and sprayed out a stream of venom, shooting towards a big tree. Tree followed closely behind, quickly forming seals in his hands. Water release water breaking wave. The high-pressure water line was spit out from the mouth of the rope tree, and it came first and cut off a large tree in the middle. A figure jumped up from behind the tree, turned into a cloud of insects in the sky, dodged the water and venom, and rushed towards the rope tree and Shinya. The dense insects dyed half of Shinya's body black, and the insects swarmed crazily on Shinya's scales to eat chakra. Shinya showed a disdainful look, and the magical energy in his body surged out from the gaps in his scales. Countless bugs came into contact with the power of immortal magic and turned into stones one after another, falling from Shinya's body. More insects came one after another, rushing onto Shinya's body without fear of death, continuing the unfinished business. Anger burned in Shinya's eyes, and a large amount of magical chakra surged out of his body again, turning the insects that rushed towards him into stone. But the insect swarm seemed endless. No matter how many Shinya killed, there were always countless insects pounced on it. And as the devouring time became longer and longer, some bugs began to reproduce while pounced on Xingya. A larva that hatched in the environment of Senjutsu chakra actually seemed to have developed antibodies to Senjutsu chakra. It was no longer affected by the characteristics of Senjutsu chakra and turned into stone. It was firmly attached to Shinya's body. Shinya was a little surprised at this. The scales on his body opened and closed, and he used chakra to fly away the bugs on his body again. Kid, what's going on with these bugs? Where did you provoke such troublesome guys? Their characteristics are as annoying as your wood release. Do you have any good solution? If this continues, sooner or later all the chakra in my body will be eaten by these bugs. Naoki was also a little surprised. He didn't expect the bugs of the Aburame clan to be so difficult to deal with. Even the Senjutsu chakra was about to get used to it. I don't know if it's because Ryoma Aburame's bugs are special, or if other members of the Aburame clan are like this too. But now is not the time to think about this. Shungshu looked at the swarms of insects that kept rushing towards him, and quickly formed water escape seals on his hands. Water release, great water crush. The direction of the huge amount of water flow controlled by the rope tree washed away all the insects lying on Shinya's body. Caught in the waves and submerged under the water. It seems that these bugs are afraid of water, otherwise we would be in big trouble. Shinya, let's sense it now. Where is that guy? Shinya nodded and released his perception again. About 50 meters ahead on the left, there is a large amount of chakra reaction. Another chakra reacted and ran away, but was stopped by two other familiar chakras. Those two people should be your teammates, they have already started fighting. Naoshu nodded, understanding in his heart. Hizashi and Makoto were able to stop a frightened Chunin. It was not a problem at all and there was no need to worry at all. The relieved Naoki looked at where Aburame Ryoma was hiding and sneered in his heart, aren't you good at sucking chakra with bugs? Then let's compete to see who can suck it faster. Sage mode, turn on. A streak of cyan eyeshadow appeared in Rushu's eyes, and the magical energy overflowing from his body formed snake-shaped shadows around him. Shinya, who was underneath him, sensed the Shanju energy fluctuations on Shungshu's body and transferred the energy in his body to Shungshu's body. The magical energy that was escaping from the rope tree suddenly became more turbulent, and the snake-shaped shadow around him became a little more solid in an instant. Shungshu was overjoyed. He didn't expect Shinya to be able to inject his magical chakra into his body. Now he had found a treasure. Shinya, you can actually provide me with magical chakra. HMPH. Kid, don't underestimate me. My application of magical energy is not inferior to that old white snake. Shenshu was so surprised that she simply increased the intensity of her chakra output. Okay. In that case, provide me with more Senjutsu chakra, and I will try to integrate Senjutsu into wood release. Shinya hummed indifferently and silently increased the amount of chakra sent to the rope tree. Rope tree sensed the constant flow of magic chakra in his body, and shouted confidently. Immortal technique, wood release, the birth of the tree world. The active yin escape energy in the body suddenly merged into the wood escape chakra along the handprints formed by the rope tree. Compared with the wooden escape that he barely used in the last battle against Shinya, large trees quickly emerged from the ground, and they appeared in a more powerful posture containing magical chakra. The crazy growing branches began to wreak havoc on the hiding place of Aburame Ryoma. Seeing that he could no longer hide, Aburame Ryoma jumped up and stepped between the branches of the wooden escape tree to dodge the branches that were coming towards him. However, he underestimated the speed of the growth of the wood escape that was added with Senjutsu chakra. Countless branches wrapped around Aburame Ryoma's body, quickly forming an airtight cage. Aburame Ryoma looked at the closed wood escape and was shocked. You must not be surrounded by wood release. Otherwise, it will be difficult to survive if wood release absorbs the characteristics of chakra. Secret technique insect explosion. Aburame Ryoma used a secret technique that was the most harmful to bugs, detonating a large number of parasitic bugs around her body, blasting a big hole above the closed cage, and jumped out in a flash. Water release Shui Yi Na Yuan. Naoki opened his mouth and spat out a ball of water that was as thick as glue, forming a large piece of highly viscous glue below where Aburame Ryoma was about to land. Aburame Ryoma didn't expect Naoki to release ninjutsu so quickly, and the range of this water escape was too large. With his body in the air, he couldn't use any strength at all, and he was about to fall into this sticky glue. Secret technique Insect Jade. Aburame Ryoma, who was in midair, did not give up her resistance and used the secret insect control technique again. A large number of parasites formed a black cloud under his feet, forcibly lifting his fallen body up. Shinya, who was already fed up with these bugs, opened his mouth and spit out a ball of venom with a "ba" sound in his direction. Aburame Ryoma had just barely managed to stabilize her figure, and before she could make any other moves, she was sprayed with venom. The petrification spread from the area contaminated with poison to Aburame Ryoma's body, and within a short time, Aburame Ryoma turned into a stone statue. The parasitic bug lost the restraint of its master, and its simple mind did not receive new instructions, so it dispersed in an instant. Driven by instinct, he flew towards the wood escape forest released by the rope tree. Mudan's abundant Yangdun chakra and life energy can be regarded as the most irresistible temptation for these parasites who have lost the control of their masters. The swarm of insects lay greedily on the vines containing magic and yin-yang chakra, constantly absorbing this rare energy. Aburame Ryoma's petrified body fell to the ground with a clang as the insect swarm dispersed. A rat at the root doesn't deserve to be on the same ground as me. Water release water breaking wave. Naoki formed a decisive seal, and a stream of high-pressure water shot out of his mouth, smashing Aburame Ryoma's body into pieces. Ding! The host kills a Jonin. Obtained. The total amount of chakra increased by 10%. Obtained. The secret art of insect control. The dust has settled. When Naoshu heard the reward given by the system, he couldn't help but have a strange look on his face. The reward for increasing the total amount of chakra by 10% is not bad, and it is definitely worthy of Ryoma's strength as a Junin. The later secrets of insect control are a bit interesting. Exiting the sage mode, Roshu looked at the swarm of insects lying on the tree sucking chakra, and tried to activate the secret insect control technique to see what effect it had. As several complex handprints were formed, a wonderful spiritual power emitted from the rope tree's body and enveloped the insect swarm. Like a contract, the rope tree's spiritual power turned into tiny threads and penetrated into the insect's body. In an instant, countless insects sent thoughts of loving obedience to the rope tree in their minds. Owner. Delicious. Power to multiply and evolve. The rope tree couldn't help but feel surprised when she heard the insects' voices. I didn't expect that the secret technique of insect control can actually sense the thoughts of insects. It's really amazing. The Aburame family's insect control technique shouldn't have this ability, right? At most, it can only sense the preferences and habits of some insects. The things the system provides are really not simple. Looking at the swarm of insects that kept devouring chakra to evolve and multiply, a thought suddenly flashed in Rushu's mind. If these bugs that have eaten Senjutsu chakra multiply in large numbers, then if they are used against the enemy in the future, bugs full of Senjutsu energy will surge up. Even the tailed beasts won't be able to withstand it, right? No, I don't have room to put so many bugs. You can't be like the Aburame clan and parasitize bugs in your body, right? Don't say you can't accept it. If Makoto knew about it, I'm afraid. What should I do? Such a useful insect, it would be a pity to give up. But where should it be placed? Naoshu touched his chin and lowered his head in thought. Hey, kid, since the battle is over, I will go back first. If anything happens, you can call me out again. Shinya looked at the buzzing insects lying on the tree irritably, and impatiently blew out 2 streams of white air from his nostrils. Shengshu's eyes lit up and he looked at Shinya at his feet with a flattering smile on his face. Shinya, let's discuss something, okay? When Shinya heard the sound of the rope tree, he suddenly shivered for no reason. Huh, kid, what do you want to discuss? Say it first, I may not agree. The rope tree jumped down from Shinya's head and stood in front of it, rubbing its hands and laughing nonstop. Hey, I just want you to help me raise bugs for a while. Shinya's pupils shrank, his body arched sharply, and he looked down at the rope tree. Impossible. I hate these bugs, don't even think about it. Shengshu's request was rejected by Shinya, but he was not discouraged. Licking his face, he walked to Shinya's one eye, touched the scales on its cheek and continued to persuade Shinya. Shinya, these bugs have been subdued by my secret techniques, and they will no longer suck your chakra. But it's hard to explain to others how I learned the secrets of insect control. If I raise them myself, I might be in big trouble. Just help me. Okay. Shengshu looked at the indifferent Shinya and rolled his eyes. Then why don't I teach you the secret technique of controlling insects? This secret technique can communicate with insects. Aren't you bored every day in Longdi Cave? With these bugs, when I don't channel you, you can communicate with them to relieve your boredom. How about that? Shinya showed a trace of emotion in his eyes. Seeing this, the rope tree struck while the iron was hot and said, think about it. These bugs are adapted to the magic chakra. If you raise these bugs well, in the future, if any snake in Longdi Cave doesn't listen to you, you put these bugs on it, then. Shinya's eyes became brighter and brighter, and his pupils suddenly stared at the rope tree. It's a deal. From now on, these bugs will be under my control. I don't know what Shinya suddenly thought of, and he let out a sneer. Shengshu made a victory gesture in his heart and passed on the secret method of insect control to Shinya through the contract connection. Shinya received the secret method of controlling insects and was eager to try it out. A powerful spiritual power came from Shinya's body and enveloped the insect swarm. There was a sudden commotion in the insect swarm, and then slowly calmed down as if they had received some instructions. After all, the secret insect control technique that Shinya obtained was not like what Roshu obtained from the system rewards, and he could use it easily directly. Shinya, who had just mastered the secret technique, accidentally used too much force, and the mental power allocated to each insect seemed a little too much. Those insects that had signed a contract with Shinya's mental power seemed to be drunk. After receiving Shinya's instructions, they flew towards Shinya crookedly. Shinya doesn't care about the proficiency of the secret technique. He can practice this aspect slowly in the future. It has more time. Looking at the flying insects with great interest, feeling their obedience and closeness to him, Shinya nodded with satisfaction. Yeah, kid, this secret technique is quite interesting. These bugs will be handed over to me from now on. If there is nothing else, I will go back to Longdi Cave to study this secret technique. Naoshu smiled and nodded. Okay. I have to rush to meet up with my teammates. You can just raise bugs in Longdi Cave with peace of mind. I'll call you out when I need your help in the future. Shinya slightly nodded the huge snake head, opened his mouth, and the insect swarm received the order and got into Shinya's mouth. Shinya held the worm in his mouth and said angrily, then I'll leave. Call me if you need anything. After saying that, it turned into a ball of smoke with a bang, and returned to Longdi Cave. Naoki watched Shinya leave with a bright smile on his face, turned around and ran towards the direction where Maken and the two were fighting. A black figure emerged from the ground. Looking at the leaving figure of Rope Tree, a hint of surprise appeared in his amber eyes. Oh, descendants of Asura. They have already awakened Mudden. I don't know if he is the reincarnation of this generation of Asura. However, regardless of whether he is the reincarnation of Asura or not, his current power cannot affect my plan. After Uchiha Madara successfully opens the Samsara Eye, let's find a chance to get in touch with this brat. The weird sound disappeared, and the black figure merged into the ground again like a fish swimming into water. Yo. Looks like I'm late. Naoki arrived at the place where the battle took place and happened to see Makoto using fire escape to burn the root ninja whose acupuncture points were sealed by Hazashi and could not move. He jumped to the two of them and said hello. Makoto closed her Sharingan and looked at the rope tree worriedly. Nangshu-kun, are you okay? Who attacked you? Hazashi also looked at the rope tree, with a hint of worry and inquiry in his eyes. Rope tree waved his hand. Fine. They're just some rats that don't deserve to be on the stage. Although there are some troubles, they have been solved. How are you two? You're not hurt. Hazashi snorted disdainfully. HMPH. Although our strength is not as good as yours, he is just a chunin and cannot threaten us. Makoto also had a smile on her pretty face and nodded to the rope tree. Naoki gave Hazashi a blank look. Okay. Since no one is injured, let's continue on our way. But it took a lot of time. The three of them immediately set out on their journey again, heading towards the Kingdom of Rain. After experiencing 2 attacks, the road ahead seemed calm. No one launched another sneak attack on the 3 of them. They walked and stopped all the way and finally arrived at the Kingdom of Rain. On the second day of walking on the road, the system finally sent a message in Naoki's mind that the evolution of the Sharingan was completed. Naoki took advantage of a break on the way to find a puddle and secretly opened his Sharingan and looked at it. 3 Magatama appeared in his eyes. As the Sharingan opens, the surrounding space seems to slow down. Waves of coolness continued to emanate from his eyes and spread to Shungshu's brain, which significantly improved his mental strength. After all, he was on his way to the battlefield, so it was not the right time to explore more of the effects of the Sharingan, so Naoki had no choice but to quietly close the Sharingan and continue on the road with the 2 of them. Following the special marks left by Konoha ninjas, the 3 came to the frontline camp established by Konoha in the Land of Rain. After showing his ninja certificate, he asked the guarding ninja where Orochimaru was. Shungshu and the others came to a tent, patted the rain off their bodies, opened the curtain of the tent and walked in. "Teacher, we are here." Orochimaru was talking to several ninjas in the camp. When he saw the 3 people from Naoki coming in, he raised his head and smiled at them. "Why did you come so late? Did you encounter any trouble on the road?" Naoki looked at Orochimaru and showed a relieved smile. "We did encounter some rats on the road, but we got rid of them all." Orochimaru's eyes flashed and he nodded thoughtfully. "Well, it's okay. Now that you're here, just sit down." The teacher is summarizing the intelligence coming back from the current battlefield. You can also listen to it. "Fugaku-kun, please continue." Naoki was stunned when he heard the name, and looked at the familiar face sitting opposite Orochimaru, who turned around, and suddenly felt a little surprised. "Fugaku, are you here too?" The 19-year-old Fugaku is now the young patriarch of the Uchiha clan. How could he appear on the front lines of the Rain country? The Uchiha clan just let him, the young clan leader, come to the battlefield. Don't be afraid if something goes wrong. Naoki, Makoto, Hazashi, you are here too. The Uchiha clan came here a while ago. Before Lord Orochimaru brought anyone here, our Uchiha clan had been responsible for the defense here. Right now, I'm reporting to Lord Orochimaru on the situation here. Let's talk about old times later. Fugaku smiled at the 3 of them, then continued to turn his head and report to Orochimaru. The 3 Naoki looked at each other and sat silently next to Fugaku, listening to his story. "Lord Orochimaru, it is certain that Hanzo is not in the Land of Rain. The defense line constructed by the Rain Ninja village is now guarded by a Junin named Sanshoyu Kanda. And not long ago, Sanshoyu Kanda launched a sneak attack on the reconnaissance team sent by our Uchiha, causing heavy losses to our Uchiha clan. Including Uchiha Makoto's mother," Fugaku said, glancing at Makoto, whose expression suddenly turned ugly. Naoki held Makoto's hand and whispered a few words of comfort. Makoto barely restrained her emotions and slowly calmed down. Fugaku watched the interaction between the 2, his eyes flickered for a few times, and then calmed down. Uchiha Fugaku took out a piece of information from his arms and handed it to Orochimaru. "Lord Orochimaru, this is the information about the Sancho fish gata that the tribesmen paid for with their lives. His strength is roughly the same as that of an ordinary Junin, but his psychic beast is very weird. You can appear from any place with water at any time, and you are very good at using illusions. If the Uchiha clan had not possessed the Sharingan, they would have suffered greater losses against this psychic beast." Orochimaru took the information and read it carefully, then put the information on the table and looked at Fugaku. "Fugaku-kun, I have seen the sacrifices of the Uchiha clan. As the commander of the Rain Kingdom battlefield, I will truthfully report this achievement to the Hokage-sama. Please rest assured, Mr. Fugaku, regarding rewards and compensation for those who died, the Hokage will send someone to the Uchiha clan in the near future. Konoha will not treat anyone who has done something wrong." Uchiha Fugaku stood up and bowed to Orochimaru. "Yes. Thank you, Orochimaru-sama. I will go down and arrange the personnel who will go on patrol today, so I won't disturb you." After Fugaku said goodbye to Orochimaru, he smiled at the 3 people of Nashu and nodded before preparing to exit the camp. Orochimaru suddenly called out to Uchiha Fugaku. "Wait a moment. Fugaku-kun, if possible, temporarily incorporate the three of them into your patrol team. Now that we have arrived at the battlefield, we must be prepared to face war at any time. Naoki, Makoto, Hizashi, what's the problem with you three? Fugaku looked at the three boys and girls in front of him with some hesitation. The youngest Naoki was only 12 years old. If you join the patrol team at this age, you will easily die on the battlefield. Moreover, Konoha had never allowed newly graduated genin to join the battlefield team, but he could not refuse Orochimaru's request. He could only hope that these three genin would have some self-awareness and would take the initiative to refuse. Clearly, he was disappointed. No problem, teacher, we will definitely learn from brother Fugaku's experience. Fugaku rubbed his brows, nodded helplessly, and walked out of the camp with these three ignorant genin. Brother Fugaku, what is our mission? Is it to kill the rain ninja? As soon as she left the camp tent door, Makoto couldn't wait to ask Fugaku. Rushu pulled her aside. Makoto, have you forgotten? What Orochimaru-sensei just said was a patrol mission. It was not a mission to kill the rain ninja. Then when are we going to kill the rain ninja after our patrol? Looking at Uchiha Makoto, who was immersed in the idea of killing rain ninja and couldn't help himself, Hizashi showed a helpless smile to Naoki, and Uchiha Fugaku lowered his head and followed the three of them without saying a word. Uchiha Fugaku looked at Makoto, who was calming down again under the comfort of the rope tree, and sighed secretly in his heart. The little thoughts I had in my heart seemed to be going bad. In fact, today is also the last patrol mission for our Uchiha clan. After completing the handover of these things, I will return to Konoha with the relics of the clan and the clan members who died in the battle. I will arrange for someone to take you to familiarize yourself with the surrounding environment today. Starting tomorrow, the team brought by Lord Orochimaru will take over the patrol mission here. Fugaku calmed down his emotions and said to the three people beside him. Naoshu nodded, but he could understand the change of defense. The Fire Nation is fighting on three fronts, so manpower is naturally lacking. The Uchiha clan, who are good at fire escape, have persisted in the watery environment of the rain country for so long, and the psychological pressure they have endured has already reached its limit. It was with this in mind that the third Hokage sent Orochimaru, who had returned from a mission outside, to bring people here to change defenses. Of course, the three Naoki people had no objections to Fugaku's suggestions, and they followed the patrol team arranged by Fugaku and studied seriously. At the same time, Tsunade, who was on the battlefield in the Kingdom of Wind, also met Tsukumo Hitaki, who was already known as the White Fang of Konoha by the Sunagaku ninjas. Hitaki Tsukumo's reputation at this time can be said to be unmatched by anyone in the war in the Kingdom of Wind. As the commander-in-chief of the Kingdom of Wind on the battlefield, no one can challenge Konoha White Fang's status in terms of strength or strategy. Even Tsunade, who is a disciple of the third Hokage. And this time Tsunade came, not as the main force on the front line of the war. The third Hokage sent Tsunade here mainly to deal with the poison of the puppet master of Sunagaku village. Tsunade, I wish you were here. Tsukumo showed a surprised smile when he saw Tsunade arriving. I was still thinking about who the third generation would send to support, but I didn't expect it to be you. How great. When Tsunade faced Tsukumo, her attitude was very respectful. Tsukumo-sama, if there is anything you need me to do, please feel free to ask me. Tsukumo sighed, his expression becoming a little sad. You know Chio from Sunagaku village, right? I don't know why I went crazy a few days ago. She insisted on saying that I killed her son and daughter-in-law. In a rage, I used a puppet to release a lot of poison, causing heavy casualties to our ninjas. Tsunade, you are a medical expert. I would like to ask you to find a way to break the toxin released by Chio in the shortest possible time. This is very crucial for us to win this war, please. Tsunade nodded. Tsukumo-sama, please rest assured, I will do my best. Please take me to see the wounded. I want to start research on this toxin immediately. Chio, who released a large amount of poison on the battlefield of Konoha, finally calmed down the anger in his heart a little. As soon as Chio returned to the camp, he heard Sunagaku's spies reporting that the leader of Amegakur village and the demigod of the ninja world, Sanshoyu Hanzo, was here again. Chio suddenly felt angry. Snort. This old man with a snorkel is really haunting. Do you really think there's nothing I can do with your Sancho fish? Let's go. Come with me to meet him. Chio took all the people and angrily went to the old place to find Hanzo. Wearing a gas mask, Sanchoyu Hanzo stood alone in front of the battlefield, looking at Chio who came to the battlefield and laughed. Hey, puppet old woman, won't the Kingdom of Wind agree to my conditions? As long as we recognize the status of the Kingdom of Rain in the great ninja world, I will withdraw my troops immediately. How about that? Chio looked at the rumored ninja demigod and sneered. You old man who wears a snorkel all day long, I have already cracked the toxin in your Sancho fish. You should return to your rain country as soon as possible, so as not to lose your reputation as a demigod in the ninja world with me. Hanzo sneered and summoned the poisonous Sancho fish named Ibushi, and combined with the poison sac implanted in his body, he sprayed out a large piece of poisonous mist and blew it towards the ninjas of Sunagakure village. Stubborn puppet old woman, don't say such big words, let's see the real deal. The border between the Kingdom of Earth and the Kingdom of Grass. It's so boring. There are no enemies at all. What's the point of the old man asking me to come to the front line of the land of Earth? It's quiet in Iwagakure village, and there's no intention of invading at all. Jiraiya looked at the peaceful Earth Kingdom in the distance and couldn't help but sigh. Go to Iwagakure village to investigate again. If I still don't find any intention to attack Iwagakure village, I will go to the country of rain to meet with Orochimaru. Well, it's decided. Well, first of all, we need to go to the custom street of Iwagakure village to find out, maybe we can get something unexpected. Hey. Lord Kanda, there is news from the front line that the Uchiha clan has set off to return to Konoha. Now the commander of Konoha on the battlefield has been replaced by Cold Lord Orochimaru, a disciple of the third Hokage. An Omegakure ninja with a gas mask hanging around his neck respectfully reported the intelligence on the front line to Sanchoyu Kanda who was sitting in the camp. Due to the poisonous sac implanted in Sancho Hanzo's body, the air he breathes out contains violent Sancho toxins. In order to prevent his ninjas from dying from inhaling toxins, Sanchoyu Hanzo ordered that all Omegakure village ninjas must wear gas masks before standing next to him. But breathing was not very smooth with the mask on, and Sanchoyu Hanzo was not around now, so the Omegakure ninja temporarily took off the gas mask. Like the Omegakure ninja present, Sanchoyu Kanda took off his gas mask and hung it around his neck, and nodded after hearing this. Yeah. Have you found out how many reinforcements Konoha has sent this time? Besides Orochimaru, are there any other difficult characters to deal with? What about his teammates Tsunade Hime and Jiraiya? Back to you, sir. There are about 400 to 500 people coming to Konoha for reinforcements this time, and no trace of Tsunade Hime and Jiraiya was found inside. But, Sanchoyu Shenda frowned in confusion, looking at the subordinate who was reporting. But what? The rain ninja who made the report knew that Sanchoyu Kanda had a moody personality and did not dare to tempt him, so he hurriedly said what he wanted to say next. However, in the past few days, I have reported to the teams that have penetrated Konoha's garrison. Konoha seems to have sent several new generation ninjas to the battlefield. And the people of Konoha seem to attach great importance to these little guys. At any time, there will be a team of elite ninjas following them. A flash of light flashed in Sanchoyu Shenda's eyes, and a disdainful smile appeared on his face. HMPH. It seems that Konoha's strength is nothing more than this. Even the new generation of ninjas were sent to the battlefield. It seems that the Omegakure village, under the leadership of Lord Hanzo, has put a lot of pressure on Konoha. Sanchoyu Shenda looked at the subordinates in front of him and issued an order in a cold voice. Continue to send people to infiltrate the Konoha station. When the time is right, attack the Konoha troops and make sure to hit them hard. I want Orochimaru to know that since Omegakure village can suppress the Uchiha clan so much that they cannot hold their heads up, they can also make him roll back to Konoha in despair. AIM Hidden Village will definitely win this war, and the name of Sanchoyu will be spread throughout the ninja world from now on. The Rain Ninja hesitated for a moment, then spoke to persuade. But, Hanzo-sama said before he left that before he returns from defeating the Iron Kingdom and Sand Hidden Village, let us focus on defense. I'm afraid if we launch an attack rashly. Sanchoyu Shenda narrowed his eyes, with a cold light flashing in his eyes, and looked at this subordinate coldly. Madness. I am Hanzo-sama's most loyal subordinate. It is my responsibility to spread Hanzo-sama's reputation to the ninja world. Master Hanzo said before he left that in his absence, I will have full command here. What? Are you questioning Lord Hanzo's order? Yu Ren lowered his head in a hurry, saying he didn't dare. HMPH. Get down. Go and deliver my orders. Only when these great ninja villages are beaten painfully will they put down their arrogance and look at our Yuyan village as equals. Since Uchiha Fugaku returned to Konoha with his tribe, after several days of patrolling, Naoki and the others have gained some understanding of the surrounding situation. In recent days, under the leadership of a team of experienced Konoha ninjas, the rope tree has gradually received some rewards from the infiltrated rain ninjas. Although his teammates found it strange that Naoki always used a ninjutsu to hit the fallen Omegakure ninja every time, after all, he was killing the enemy, so no one thought much about it. Alas! Without a formal big conflict, just relying on this small fish and shrimp, the strength will not be improved much at all. The rope tree used water escape to kill several Omegakure ninjas that had infiltrated, and once again received some rewards. It's just some low-level attribute ninjutsu and supplies, which are better than nothing. The 3 Konoha Chunin who patrolled with the rope tree were initially surprised by the strength of these little guys. But after a few days of getting along, I found that ninjas like them, who relied on their age and qualifications to survive, simply couldn't understand creatures like geniuses. Nowadays, it is no longer strange to see Naoki casually kill the Omegakure ninja with water escape. Okay, the sun is about to set, and today's patrol mission is almost over. Let's go to the agreed-upon location to complete the handover with the other teams, and then go back and report to Lord Orochimaru. Among the ninja team with the 3 rope trees, a middle-aged special Junin headed by them said to a few people, announcing the end of today's patrol mission. After handing over the work, they returned to the camp and reported to Orochimaru that they encountered the Omegakure ninja again today. The 3 ninjas responsible for leading the rope tree went back to rest. Orochimaru looked at the 3 people staying in the camp and nodded with satisfaction. It seems you have adapted well to the battlefield. After these few days of patrol missions, you must have some understanding of the situation on the battlefield. Any gains or ideas? Makoto and Hizashi looked at each other, then looked at Naoki, signaling for him to answer. Rope tree is not polite either. Teacher, isn't our battle between Konoha and the Rain Ninja village a little too dull? I mean, why are they all patrol and infiltration missions? Since we know that Sanshoyu Hanzo is not in the country of rain, why not directly attack the rain-hidden village? Orochimaru looked at the rope tree, a hint of disappointment flashed in his eyes, and then he put it away again. He is still a child after all and does not have such a long-term perspective to understand. Orochimaru picked up a piece of paper on the table and handed it to Naoki. Rose tree, have you forgotten what I told you before I taught you the art of necromancy? The battle between ninjas is all about intelligence. This is especially important when the 2 countries are at war. This is the information and plan I compiled based on intelligence in the past few days. I shouldn't have let you know in advance, but since you asked, it's okay to let you see. Take it. Only then did Shungshu realize that he had made the mistake of seeking quick success because he was not rewarded by the system, and he couldn't help but feel a little ashamed. Sorry, teacher. I was too impatient and let you down. Orochimaru shook his head and said nothing more. Naoki took over the battle plan, and Makoto and Hizashi came over, and the 3 of them read it together. Teacher is going to launch a beheading operation against Sanshoyu Kanda. Hizashi didn't have much reaction. Naoki and Makoto looked up and looked at Orochimaru in surprise. A hint of surprise flashed in Makoto's eyes, and the flame called revenge burned blazingly in her heart. Orochimaru saw a happy smile on his face when he saw his disciples analyzing his intentions from the intelligence. Not bad. What do you think? Makoto bit her lip, struggling fiercely inside. Ding. The host triggers new choices. Option 1. As the right-hand man of the demigod, the Sancho fish god has unfathomable strength. Stay in the camp, stay away from danger, and avoid contact with the Sancho fish god. Reward. Earth escape, Earth flow city wall. Option 2. As a strong man close to the shadow level, Sanshoyu Shendo will receive generous rewards after killing him. In order to improve his strength, I request to join this beheading operation. Reward. Reincarnation in the reincarnation of the earth. Option 3. As the culprit of the murder of Uchiha Makoto's mother, Sanshoyu Kanda, in order to fulfill his promise to Uchiha Makoto, requests to join this beheading operation and let Uchiha Makoto complete her revenge. Reward. Mastery of wind release ninjutsu. Rushu looked at the three options of the system, his eyes flashed. Looking at Makoto, who was looking confused, she made an instant decision in her heart. Teacher, please take us with you in this beheading operation. Oh. Have you thought clearly? As the right-hand man of the ninja world's demigod, Sanshoyu Kanda's strength should not be underestimated. Facing his weird psychic beast, even I may not be able to escape unscathed. Are you sure you want to participate? Orochimaru raised his eyebrows when he heard his disciple's answer, but instead of refusing, he asked with interest. Makoto looked at Nashu in surprise, not expecting him to make such a choice. Naoki gave Makoto a gentle smile and patted her back to comfort her. Turning to look at Orochimaru. Teacher, I have thought it through. I promised Makoto that I would help her mother get revenge. Although Sanshoyu Manda may be strong, I'm not weak either. And if you don't even have the courage to face a strong enemy, how can you become stronger? Makoto trembled and looked at the rope tree excitedly, tears welling up in her eyes. Rose Tree-kun. Orochimaru could clearly see from the sidelines. If he, the teacher, hadn't been present, Uchiha Makoto might have thrown herself into Naoki's arms based on her current excited mood. That boy Naoki is much better at dealing with girls than Jiraiya. A weird smile appeared on Orochimaru's face, and he silently despised Jiraiya in his heart. Now that you have decided, go back and have a good night's rest and get ready. I will inform you to start taking action tomorrow. Yes. At an entertainment venue in a small town in Earth Country, Jiraiya, who was hugging him from side to side, suddenly sneezed. Ah, sneeze. HMPH. It must be that guy Orochimaru who said bad things about me again. This guy is really annoying. My good mood has completely disappeared. Jiraiya rubbed his nose and waved away several graceful girls around him. He touched the girl who squeezed past him and put his hand under his nose obscenely and smelled it. Oh, it smells so good. Watching several girls who left coquettishly disappear out the door, the lewd look on Jiraiya's face disappeared instantly. Ninja technique, barrier sky cover magic formation. He quickly formed a series of hand seals with his hands, setting up a barrier in the room. Psychic art. A contact frog was summoned by Jiraiya. He opened his mouth and spit out a scroll. Jiraiya reached out to take it and opened it. This is the information recorded by the Toad of MT. Myoboku in special encrypted text. In the entire ninja world, apart from Jiraiya, it is estimated that only Minato in the future can understand it. It seems like Onoki really has no plans to attack Konoha. Hi. I've been waiting in vain these days. Forget it, since the soil defense line is safe, let's go to the rain country to find Orochimaru. After meeting Orochimaru, I said that I have completed the mission of the Earth Kingdom. Let's see what his expression will be. Hey. Jiraiya used the secret code of communication between Konoha ninjas to record the information he had detected about the Earth Kingdom and his next destination on the scroll, and stuffed it into the toad's mouth again. Go. Send the information back to Konoha and give it to Sarutobi-sensei. The contact frog nodded, lifted the necromantic spell and disappeared. Jiraiya lifted the Tiangai magic circle, showed his cynical look again, and walked out laughing and joking with the ladies. Hizashi looked at Naoki and Uchiha Makoto, who had grown tired of each other since they came out of Orochimaru-sensei's camp, and the acid in his stomach surged up. The food on the front line is really bad. The food I eat these days is like dog food. I can't even digest it. Hizashi glared angrily at the two people who were not ashamed, and snorted coldly in his heart. Humph. You fool man and woman. Turn around and leave. Makoto, who had been controlling her emotions in the camp, finally couldn't help but threw herself into the arms of the tree and cried. As for the daily difference. Just leave, who cares? Ooh. Thank you for remembering my mother. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't know how to tell Mr. Orochimaru about this. Tree patted her back gently to comfort her. Okay, be good. Stop crying. Don't worry, I will definitely do what I promised you. You go back and have a good rest first. Tomorrow I will find a way for you to avenge your mother with your own hands. Makoto's eyes were red, and she reluctantly climbed up from Naoshu's arms. Well, Mr. Shungshu, you should also go to bed early. Naoki waved his hand and watched Makoto get into the tent. Thinking of the rewards I just received from the system, my heart was filled with excitement. Anyway, it's still early now. Let's find a place to try the power of the wind release ninjutsu. I've been craving for the wind release ninjutsu for 2 lifetimes. After finding a remote location far enough away from the camp, Naoki opened his Sharingan and observed the surroundings carefully. After making sure that no one else would notice the movement here, Rotri stretched out his hand and followed the memory instilled into his mind by the system, and chakra began to gather in his hand. Rasengan. The chakra ball was spinning in the palm of his hand, causing a slight breeze. Naoki calmed down and slowly injected the wind attribute chakra into the Rasengan in his hand. Like the substantial wind attribute chakra, wrapped in a layer of chakra like a film, chaos but orderly began to spin. With the help of the super dynamic vision of the 3 Magatama Sharingan, the internal structure of the wind release Rasengan was clearly presented in front of the rope tree. Layers upon layers of tiny wind blades form rotating wind currents, each moving forward or backward inside. With the movement of countless small wind blades, the Rasengan made a slight buzzing sound. Naoki held the Rasengan in his hand and gently pressed it against a huge rock. Like a knife cutting through butter, a smooth semicircular hole the size of a bowl suddenly appeared on the rock. The rope tree simply let go, cutting off the chakra supply to the Rasengan. Without the stable chakra maintenance of the Rasengan, the internal order suddenly lost control, and instantly formed a powerful impact and exploded. With a loud bang, the rocks attacked by the Naoshu Rasengan were shattered into pieces. The power was so powerful that people were stunned. It's really amazing. Minato is such a genius. He can actually use the wind attribute chakra to such an extent. It's unimaginable. After observing the entire process of the Rasengan from formation to explosion with Sharingan, Naoki couldn't help but sigh. Try this move again that Naruto used to penetrate the entire Hokage. Wind release, spiral shuriken. Nezuki stretched out his hand again, and more dense wind attribute chakra appeared in his palm, quickly forming the shape of a spiral pill. The rope tree once again made subtle adjustments to the wind attribute chakra, and 4 blade-like chakra blades slowly appeared on the Rasengan. The more fine and frantic chakra wind blades made a somewhat harsh buzzing sound, causing the spiral shuriken in their hands to start spinning. The 4 wind blades rotated rapidly, forming a dense blade shadow. Crazy wind attribute chakra was transmitted into the palm of the rope tree, and a sharp pain shocked the rope tree. He pressed the already formed spiral shuriken on the ground to cut off the supply of chakra and quickly retreated. The dazzling white light illuminates the woods in the dark night. There was a loud bang, the spiral shuriken pressed to the ground suddenly expanded, and countless wind blades began to cut wildly on the ground. Naoshu held his trembling right hand and swallowed his saliva when he looked at a circular puddle with a diameter of about 10 meters in front of him. Hiss. So strong, worthy of being a forbidden level wind escape. The shape change and power have almost reached the extreme. No wonder Naruto, with just this move, almost penetrated the entire ninja world before the 6th level combat power appeared. Feeling that the cells in his right hand that had been damaged by wind escape were quickly restored under the influence of the immortal human body, Naoshu breathed a sigh of relief. Naruto was supported by the powerful power of the Kyuubi in his body. When he used the Rasenshuriken for the first time, his hand was almost useless, and it took him a long time to rest before he recovered. Fortunately, the immortal human body of the rope tree can recover this kind of injury at the cellular level. Otherwise, this trick can only be used when the immortal technique is perfected. As for the stronger Big Tama Rasengan and the extra-large Jade Rasen Shuriken, with his current strength, it would probably be uncomfortable to use them for a long time, so Naoki didn't plan to try them today. And after the completion of the ninjutsu reaches 100%, the type of spiral shuriken that can be thrown can be released, but even in his half-assed sage mode, he probably can't use it. If he summoned Shinya to help, the movement would be too loud and might alert the ninjas patrolling nearby. Naoshu had no choice but to suppress the urge to strike, and honestly recovered from the injury on his right hand. However, after a short while, the feeling in his hand had returned. Naoshu exerted a little force on his right hand, stretched his palm a few times, and showed a satisfied smile on his face. Tomorrow's battle, I believe it will leave a deep impression on them. Early the next morning, Orochimaru led 300 Konoha ninjas and marched towards the place where the Omegakure ninjas were stationed. Nearly 200 people were left behind to guard the rear, ready to support and respond at any time. After arriving at the Egakure ninja station, divide into 300-man teams and launch a feint attack on the enemy from 3 directions. Be sure to spread out Omegakure's combat power and reduce the number of ninja guarding Sancho Yukanda to a minimum. I will lead an elite team to execute the plan. Do you understand? Orochimaru looked at the 300 Konoha ninjas who were ready to go, making their final pre-war deployments. Yes. A group of ninjas responded with a bang, and according to the arranged team, they spread out in 3 directions and lurked towards Yugakure's station. Naoki watched the ninjas walk away, leaving only Orochimaru and 3 members of his team, and he couldn't help but be stunned. Teacher, does this mean that you were the only one to execute the original beheading plan? Orochimaru nodded to the 3 Naoki and said, yes, this plan is said to be a decapitation operation. In fact, my original purpose was just to eliminate the effective strength of the Omegakure ninjas as much as possible. As for Sancho Kanda, it's best if he can be killed. If he can't be killed, I will try my best to contain him and create a better combat environment for Konoha's ninjas. Orochimaru paused and smiled at the 3 of them. But now with your help, I have more confidence in the feasibility of this beheading plan. How about it? If there are only a few of us, do we dare to go with the teacher to see the strength of a quasi-shadow-level powerhouse? Makoto and Hazashi became a little nervous when they heard Orochimaru's arrangement. An indifferent smile appeared on Naoshu's face. Teacher, don't underestimate me. I have recently developed a very powerful ninjutsu, which will definitely surprise you. Seeing the confident smile on his disciple's face, Orochimaru nodded noncommittally. Okay. I will take you to the ambush location first, and you will wait there. I will lure out the Sancho Kanda when the Konoha ninjas attack. Let the teacher see your ninjutsu then. Naoki stretched out his hand to Orochimaru and made a reassuring gesture. Orochimaru smiled and led the 3 disciples towards the designated ambush location. It didn't rain in the rain country today, and the dark clouds in the sky rarely let out the sun. The water vapor on the ground raises a thin layer of fog under the sunlight. Next to a small clear lake, Orochimaru took the 3 of them to the woods beside the lake. The mist in the woods is thicker than other places due to its proximity to the water source. The dense fog gave the forest a natural camouflage, making it a good place for an ambush. Orochimaru placed the 3 of them here, said a few words, ducked towards the direction where the Omegakure ninjas were stationed, and disappeared into the fog with a few jumps. The battlefield of the Kingdom of Wind. Sancho Hanzo looked at the 9 humanoid white-clothed puppets who were killing wantonly among the Omegakure ninjas, and his teeth itched with hatred. These 9 humanoid puppets, plus the bull-headed puppet currently guarding Chiyo, together are called the Chikamatsu 10 people. Chiyo uses superb puppet control skills and connects his 10 fingers to the puppet's body to carry out weird and tricky attacks on the enemy from various angles. A female-looking puppet, wielding 2 broadswords in its hands, was rampaging through the ranks of Omegakure ninjas. Ordinary ninjas could not even fight at close range, so they were chopped down by these 2 broadswords. A puppet with a blue face protruded from its head with a large number of spiked iron chains, piercing through the ninja in the distance. The one who was lucky enough not to die was pulled to the side of the double knife puppet by Grimlock, and was killed with a single blow. A puppet with a red face and a puppet with a white face, like a combination. While fighting with Yuyin, the red-faced puppet suddenly grabbed the white puppet, disassembled and assembled it in his hands, turned the opponent into a huge Fuma shuriken, and placed it on himself. As the red puppet ran, the huge Fuma shuriken on his body rotated rapidly, forming a storm of blades and cutting a bloody path through the Rain Ninja team. This inhuman operation was so horrifying that all the Rain Ninjas cried for their fathers and mothers. They only wished that their parents had given them 2 legs, and they scrambled to escape far away. 3 puppets with long tongues sticking out and Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, written on their tongues suddenly flew into the air and formed a pile of arhats. A strong suction force came from the strange shape formed by the 3 puppets, sucking back the fleeing Rain Ninjas. A puppet with white hair came closer, its arms stretched to an exaggerated degree, and it hugged all the rain ninjas who were sucked back. The white-haired puppet looked down at the ninjas he was holding, opened his mouth and spit out a round bomb. With a loud bang, the white-haired puppet and the ninjas in his arms were blown into the sky. The bodies of the ninjas could not withstand such powerful bombs exploding around them. They screamed and were blown away, falling to the ground motionless. And under the control of Chio's chakra lines, the white-haired puppet reassembled the blown parts one by one, and in the blink of an eye it became exactly the same as before. Sanshoyu Hanzo never thought that the old woman who he always thought could only play puppets and fight with each other still had such a skill. The first few times the two parties fought, it was considered a back and forth. But this time, Chio didn't know what medicine he took wrongly, and he actually released the 10 Chikamatsu people left behind by Monziman. Sanshoyu Hanzo felt like he had been deceived, and for a moment he felt angry and evil. He rushed in front of the puppets who were killing everyone in the Rain Ninja team. The sickle in his hand made a sound of breaking wind and attacked the puppets. Hanzo also lived up to his reputation as a demigod. With his inherited swordsmanship and powerful teleportation technique, he was able to beat several puppets to pieces in just a moment. Chio didn't want the 10 Chikamatsu people to suffer too much damage, so he had no choice but to control the chakra wires to take the puppet back to his side. Hanzo stared at Chio, who was surrounded by puppets, and said harsh words through gritted teeth. Puppet old woman, don't think that you can defeat Yuyin village with these toys made of wood. Let me show you the power of Sanshoyu. Belonging to Yuyin village, retreat. Psychic art. The huge Sansho fish well appeared at Hanzo's feet, opened its mouth and sprayed out a large cloud of poisonous mist. Hanzo reached out and slapped his abdomen, activating the poison sac implanted in his body, causing bursts of poison to emit from his body. Wind escape big breakthrough. Hanzo quickly formed the seal of wind release in his hand, and a strong wind wrapped in poisonous mist blew towards Chio and the ninjas of Sunagakure village. Chio frowned and shouted to the Sunagakure ninjas around him, "Everyone, quit the battle. Leave this to me." The Sunagakure ninja knew the power of the Sansho fish toxin, so he did not dare to be careless and retreated far away without hesitation. Chio looked at Hanzo opposite, and the corners of his mouth suddenly curved. The chakra line in her hand suddenly moved, and 3 puppets with Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha written on their tongues stood in front of her. The seal in Chio's hand changed, and the chakra from his body poured into the 3 puppets. He shouted in a low voice, "White secret technique, sealing technique, 3 treasures absorb." The 3 puppets assumed their previous poses in front of Chio, and emitted a strong suction force in the direction of the poisonous mist. The poisonous mist rolled forward, but seemed to be restricted in its path. Like baby swallows returning to their nest, they all came towards the formation formed by the puppets. A large amount of poisonous mist was restricted by the 3 treasures absorption, and the air on the field suddenly became fresher. Sanshoyu Hanzo's expression changed. He didn't expect that Chio would solve the problem of poisoning that had been tried and tested many times. Chio looked at Hanzo with a weird smile on his face. "Old guy with a snorkel, can you release your poison sac now? After fighting for so long, I already know your secret. Do you want me to tell it here? Every time your poison sac releases toxin, you need enough." The more Chio spoke, the uglier Hanzo's face became. When he heard that his secret was really discovered by Chio, he finally couldn't help but interrupt Chio's words. HMPH. So what if there's no poison? I didn't get my reputation as a demigod through these poisons. Come and see my true strength. Hanzo tightened the scythe in his hand and assumed a fighting posture like a samurai. Chio pushed the 3 puppets that were still sealing the poison forward, and motioned Hanzo to look over with his chin. "Old guy with a snorkel, how many people do you think will survive if I put these poisons into your Yugakure team?" Chio looked at Hanzo with a half-smile. Hanzo's body froze when he was about to take action. He looked at the large amount of toxins sealed by the 3 puppets. He felt that heaven and man were fighting for a long time in his heart, and finally put away his fighting spirit. "I lost this battle. Yuyin village will withdraw from the Kingdom of Wind starting today." After saying that, Hanzo left the battlefield with the remaining Rain Ninja without looking back. Chio looked at Hanzo's leaving figure and couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. He waved his hand to disperse the chakra thread controlling the puppet, and resealed the puppet back to the scroll. The bound Sanshotoxin slowly dissipated over the empty battlefield as the puppet disappeared. Faced with the two-front attack by the Rain Ninjas and Konoha, the Kingdom of Wind had long been unable to hold on. Now, relying on threats, it finally solved the problem of the Kingdom of Rain. Chiyo thought of Konoha, a trace of sadness and hatred flashed in her eyes. Now that the Kingdom of Rain has withdrawn from the battlefield of the Kingdom of Wind. White Fang of Konoha, let my old lady settle things with you. All sand ninjas obey the order and march towards the Konoha battlefield. Chiyo gave the order and led the Suna ninja towards the front line of the battle with Konoha. Lord Tsukumo, you are lucky to have lived up to your destiny. The more than 20 toxins Chiyo dropped on the Konoha battlefield have all been eliminated. These are samples of the antidote. The effect has been proven on the wounded and can be mass-produced. Tsunade brought a small box to the place where the wounded were resting, and handed the vials containing dozens of antidotes to Hitaki Tsukumo, who was visiting the injured ninja. Hitaki Tsukumo took the box with genuine joy on his face. That's great, Tsunade. With these antidotes, the poison of the puppet masters of Sunagakure village can no longer pose a threat to Konoha ninjas. On behalf of all Konoha ninjas on the battlefield, thank you. Hitaki Tsukumo tightly hugged the antidote in his hand and bowed deeply to Tsunade. All the injured people lying on the hospital bed waiting for treatment were moved to tears and thanked Tsunade endlessly. Thank you, Tsunade-sama. Chiyo-sama. The undercover agent we sent to Konoha risked his life to send back a message. A Sunagakure held a secret report and respectfully handed it to Chiyo, who had just arrived at the frontline camp of Sunagakure and Konoha. Chiyo received the secret report, and the words that came into her eyes shocked her whole body, and her expression instantly dropped. Tsunade has broken through all the toxins. The short sentence came into his eyes, and Chiyo's heart instantly sank to the bottom. After being silent for a long time, Chiyo raised his head and spoke hoarsely to the sand ninja in front of him. Notify the troops on the front line that we will withdraw to the defense of Sunagakure village. Don't provoke another fight with Konoha unless necessary. Seeing the shocked Sunagakure go out to deliver the order, Chiyo sat dejectedly in the tent and let out a long sigh. It seems that the revenge of Xiao Xie-Xia's parents can only be avenged later. The sudden explosion broke the silence of the Omegakure ninja camp. Hearing the sounds of fighting coming from several directions, Sanshoyu Shenda felt a flash of anger in his eyes, opened the tent and walked out. A large number of shurikens passed through the smoke and dust emitted by the detonating talisman, and shot at the unprepared Omegakure ninja. Enemy attack. Inform Master Sanshio Ukanda immediately. In the panic, a rain ninja shouted loudly, trying to stabilize the situation. Sanshoyu Kanda looked at the chaotic situation and some Omegakure ninjas who died in the explosion and shurikens, with even more anger in his eyes. Omegakure ninja, stabilize your formation and block the attack with the water formation wall. The appearance of Sanshoyu Kanda seemed to give the panicked Omegakure ninjas in the camp a shot in the arm. They gradually counterattacked with ninjutsu and shurikens, and slowly stabilized their position. Water escape water formation wall. Water release Shui Luanbo. The attacking Konoha ninjas saw Omegakure reacting and began to counterattack their own side. He immediately began to carry out the tasks arranged by Orochimaru in advance, while pretending to use ninjutsu and shuriken to shoot at the rain ninja, while retreating back without leaving a trace. Sanshoyu Kanda looked at the Konoha ninjas who were gradually retreating, and narrowed his eyes slightly. He always felt that Konoha's sneak attack was a bit anticlimactic. Several rays of cold light suddenly shot out from the hiding place and struck at various vital points of Sanshoyu Shenda's body. Sanshoyu Shenda's pupils shrank, he waved the ninja sword in his hand to knock down the flying shuriken, and let out a cold snort in the direction of the attack. HMPH. You hidden rat, come out and fight me. The sneak attacker hiding in the dark did not answer, and once again threw a kunai and shuriken mixed with detonating talismans. The kunai tied with detonating charms collided with each other in the air, sputtering out sparks. When the detonating talisman encountered sparks, it instantly began to burn. The flames emitted by the detonating talisman caused Sanshoyu Shenda's expression to change, and he activated the teleportation technique at one point under his feet, and the whole person disappeared on the spot. Boom! The detonating talisman exploded into a ball of fire, and the heat wave caused the kunai and shurikens shot together to fly away, sending out bursts of sharp whistling in all directions. Sanshoyu Kanda did not turn around to care about the kunai that was blown away by the detonating talisman or the Omegakure ninja who was accidentally injured by the shuriken. His body instantly appeared where the attacker was hiding, and he pulled out the ninja sword from his waist as fast as lightning and moved forward. Send out a sharp slash. The attacker seemed to have no time to react. He was decapitated with a knife and his body fell limply to the ground. Sanshoyu Manda snorted coldly and used his ninja sword to turn over the head that had fallen on the ground, revealing a familiar face that he had seen in the intelligence. Orochimaru. Sanshoyu Kanda was startled, knowing that he might have fallen into Orochimaru's trick, and secretly screamed, "Not good." Orochimaru's severed head suddenly opened his eyes and showed a strange smile to Sanshoyu Kanda. The mouth suddenly opened at an exaggerated angle. A python as thick as a bull held a kusanagi sword in its mouth and quickly stabbed Sancho Fishmita. The body lying on the ground suddenly turned into white smoke and disappeared. A pair of palms stretched out from the ground in the smoke and silently grabbed the ankles of Sanshoyu Shenda. Earth released the art of beheading in the heart. Sanshoyu Manda was suddenly attacked, but he remained calm despite being frightened. The ninja sword in his hand blocked the kusanagi sword, and he exerted force on his feet at the same time, blasting chakra from the soles of his feet into the ground. The hands stretched out from the ground were hit hard and exploded into a cloud of smoke with a bang. It's the shadow clone again. Sanshoyu Shenda's eyes narrowed, and a warning sign suddenly arose in his heart. Evil snake wrist explosion. The python that was opened by the Sancho fish god Dage opened its mouth and turned its head suddenly, and Orochimaru came out of the snake's mouth. Dozens of venomous snakes with open mouths and fangs sprouted from the cuff of his left hand, screaming and biting at the Sancho fish Kanda. The kusanagi sword held in his right hand stabbed Sanshoyu Kanda's chest fiercely. Sanshoyu Kanda hurriedly stepped back, dodging the thrust of the kusanagi sword. The poisonous snake protruding from Orochimaru's sleeve suddenly stretched like rubber. The densely packed venomous snakes bit the Sancho fish Mita's body. As the snake venom was injected into it, the Sancho fish Mita's body froze and suddenly collapsed into a puddle of water contaminated by snake venom, seeping into the ground. Orochimaru dispersed the poisonous snakes in his left hand, and suddenly swung the kusanagi sword behind him in his right hand. Ding! There was a crisp sound, and the kusanagi sword just blocked the ninja sword that suddenly appeared behind Orochimaru and was slashed by Sancho Kanda. Orochimaru used the force in his hands to jump forward a long way. He looked back at Sanshoyu Kanda with a trace of regret on his face. Kanda Dono is worthy of being the right-hand man of the ninja world's demigods. He is truly powerful. It seems that today's sneak attack plan has failed, so I'll take my leave now. See you on the battlefield. After Orochimaru finished speaking, he turned around and ran away, regardless of the group of ninjas who were fighting life and death. He looked at Orochimaru who failed to attack him and left without saying a word. A surge of humiliated anger surged through Sanshoyu Kanda's heart. He clenched the ninja sword in his hand and veins popped out on his forehead. How dare you play with me? Now that you're here, let's keep your life. The chakra roared, leaving a deep footprint on the spot, and the figure shot away in the direction where Orochimaru escaped. Orochimaru noticed the movement behind him, raised the corner of his mouth slightly, and ran towards the small lake agreed with his disciples. Tune the tiger away from the mountain, complete. The sun is gradually rising, and I have accumulated a lot of enthusiasm that I haven't seen for a long time, as if I want to release it all at once today. In the woods beside the small lake, as the temperature rises, the fog becomes thicker and thicker. The three people in Shungshu who were hiding in the woods were suddenly alerted by the sound coming from the lake. Makoto opened her Sharingan directly and looked at the lake nervously and expectantly. Two figures shot out of the woods one after another, landed on the lake and stood still. It was Orochimaru and the Sancho Kanda who were chasing him. Makoto looked at the enemy who came alone, and her body trembled slightly with her heart racing. She never thought that Orochimaru-sensei actually lured Sancho Kanda out of the Omegakure ninja camp. And still alone. The sudden huge surprise enveloped her whole body and mind, and there was only one thought in her mind: the opportunity for revenge is right in front of you. Naoki stretched out his hand and put his hand on Uchiha Makoto's shoulder, holding down her body that was so excited that she wanted to jump out immediately, and lay down next to her and whispered a few words. Uchiha Makoto was in an excited mood when she was awakened by Naoki's sudden intimate movements, and a blush appeared on her face. After listening to Naoki's advice in her ear, Uchiha Makoto showed a trace of reluctance on her face. After Naoki tried to persuade her a few more times, Uchiha Makoto finally showed surprise in her eyes and nodded in agreement. The two looked at each other and smiled, and a weak wave of chakra emanated from their bodies. A burst of smoke melted into the fog, and the two people's movements on the ground remained unchanged, but their positions were switched. Hizashi looked on at a loss. Why are these two people using transformation skills for no reason? What kind of trouble is this guy Shungshu trying to do? Sancho Kanda, who was confronting Orochimaru, suddenly turned his head and stared with cold eyes at the grove where there was a slight chakra fluctuation just now. For him, an elite ninja who has been fighting beside Hanzo all year round, perhaps his strategic vision is inferior to that of Orochimaru, who has outstanding resourcefulness. But his awareness of the dangers on the battlefield made him always pay attention to the goings-on around him. Who? The three people hiding in the woods were startled by Sancho Yushenda's alertness. They didn't expect that he could sense such slight chakra fluctuations in the transformation technique. Seeing that the sneak attack was hopeless, the three simply jumped out of the woods and stood next to Orochimaru. Teacher Orochimaru, I'm so sorry. It's all my fault that I couldn't control my emotions when I saw the enemy who killed my mother appeared in front of me. That's why. Uchiha Makoto jumped out of the woods. Until now, her eyes have been fixed on the Sancho fish Kanda opposite, and she explained to Orochimaru without looking back. Orochimaru glanced at his three disciples, with a subtle smile on his face. After hearing what Uchiha Makoto said, she shook her head and said nothing. Sancho Kanda looked at the three brats who suddenly jumped out, and knew that they were the three newly graduated genin mentioned in the intelligence. It turned out that they were Orochimaru's disciples. To be sent to the battlefield at such a young age, Konoha is really digging its own grave. His eyes fell on the girl who had just spoken, and when he saw the conspicuous Uchiha clan mark on her body, he nodded suddenly. It turns out to be a brat from the Uchiha clan. Haha. I don't know how many Uchiha clan members have died in my hands, but if I want to avenge your mother, I'm afraid it's not even close. Why don't you let me send you to reunite with your mother? When you get to the underworld, remember to tell me my name. The person who will kill you is Sancho Yushenda. As soon as Sancho Kanda finished speaking, he grinned and dodged towards Uchiha Makoto. He knew in his heart that Orochimaru was his main enemy. As for these three brats, just take care of them first, it won't take long, and you won't have to worry about them when they start fighting later. Uchiha Makoto's expression condensed, and she quickly formed seals in her hands. Art Fire Escape Ho Fireball. The huge fireball trailed a long tail flame and shot towards the Sancho fish Shenda against the water surface. A large amount of lake water was evaporated by the high temperature, forming a large amount of water vapor, which obscured his sight. Fire Release, Impatience Flower Claw Red. Flames spurted out from Uchiha Makoto's mouth again, and a shuriken was thrown out of her hand, hitting the sprayed flames. The flames instantly split into several rotating fireballs, shooting at the Sancho fish Kanda from several angles. Sancho Kanda easily dodged the slow-shooting fireball, and was about to continue charging forward when he was blocked by a shuriken attached to flames. The ninja sword in his hand swung rapidly in the air, knocking down all the flaming shurikens. Looking at Orochimaru, who didn't take action for some reason, a mocking smile appeared on his face. Didn't your teacher tell you that the power of fire escape will be reduced to the minimum when there is water? Orochimaru spread his hands and showed a noncommittal smile. You will fight with Mr. Shenda first, and let me see your growth. Your Excellency Shenda, my disciple, please give me some advice. After Orochimaru finished speaking, he actually walked to a distant place and stood still, smiling at the Sancho fish Kanda. Look considerate, as I won't do anything and watch you fight my disciple. Hizashi glanced at the tree, then followed Orochimaru to the side and looked at the three people in the field. The blue veins on Sancho Kanda's forehead were stimulated by Orochimaru's expression, and the anger in his heart was rising. Okay. Okay. Orochimaru. I will definitely help you, guide, your disciples. Psychic art. King Conk. Come out. Following the call of Sancho Umanda, a huge and strange shell appeared in the lake. The two huge clam shells opened and closed slightly, and streams of misty mist spit out from the open gaps and merged into the mist floating above the lake. The body connected under the clam shell looks like a spiral conch shell. There are 2 rows of holes on the conch shell, and tentacles protrude from the holes, squirming in the lake water. Sancho Umanda stretched out his hand and patted the clam shell. 2 tentacle-like things protruded from the clam shell and collided with each other several times like a seal. Thick water arrows appeared out of thin air-like shells, shooting towards Uchiha Makoto and the others. Water release water cannon technique. Standing on the rope tree next to Uchiha Makoto, he took a step forward, stood in front of several people, clasped his hands together, and then stretched them forward. Water escape water formation wall. The continuous water bombs hit the rising water formation wall, and had no effect except splashing ripples. The attack of water bombs gradually disappeared, and the rope tree removed the barrier in front of him and formed a seal in his hand again. Water release water dragon bullet technique. Sancho Ushenda's eyes narrowed, and he looked at the water dragon bullet technique used by the rope tree in surprise. It's so fast. This kid's water escape is really incredible. The roaring water dragon slammed into the shell of the Conch King, knocking its huge body back. The Conch King was hit hard, and 2 huge clam shells suddenly opened, and a large amount of mirage was sprayed out, covering Naoki and Makoto. Naoki and Uchiha Makoto, who were about to attack again, froze, as if roots had taken root under their feet. Layers of white frost condensed from their feet and spread quickly to their entire bodies. Sancho Ushenda looked at the 2 people trapped by the Conch King's illusion, with a sneer on his face. Are you already controlled by the illusion? Then let's sink into the illusion. Then die. King of Conchs, speed up and hit us. The Conch King beneath him closed the clam shell and retracted the tentacles protruding from the 2 rows of holes at the tail. Powerful streams of water spurted out from the holes, pushing the Conch King's heavy body to quickly hit the few people who were immobilized. White eyes open. Hizashi, who had been standing far away without stepping forward to join the battle, suddenly shouted loudly, and veins bulged in his eyes. A mental wave emitted from the clear white eyes, which circled around Naoki and Uchiha Makoto, dissipating the illusion energy that had invaded their bodies. The 2 men's bodies trembled, and they broke free from the illusion in an instant. Looking at the huge psychic beast that was crashing into it at high speed, 3 Magatama suddenly appeared in Uchiha Makoto's eyes. Staring at the Sancho fish Kanda and the Conch King, the 3 Magatama began to rotate rapidly. Illusion, golden binding technique. Sancho Ukanda, who didn't expect the 2 of them to escape from the illusion so quickly, was attacked by the illusion together with the Conch King before he could react. The chakra on his body stagnated and his speed slowed down. Until it's still. When Uchiha Makoto and Naoki saw the genjutsu's success, they shouted in unison. Makoto, now! Orochimaru raised his eyebrows, looked at the second Uchiha Makoto who jumped out of the woods, and then looked at the Uchiha Makoto in the field who was using 3 Magatama to release illusions, and his eyes fluctuated violently. The rope tree in the field turned into white smoke and disappeared with a bang, but Uchiha Makoto's figure turned into the shape of the rope tree in the smoke. Looking at the real Uchiha Makoto who came to him, Naoki handed her his right hand in front of her. Makoto, do as I say, inject your chakra into my right hand, and let's do it together. Uchiha Makoto looked at Naoki's outstretched right hand, and without hesitation reached out to hold it underneath. Powerful wind attribute chakra began to gather in the palm of the rope tree, as if the actual chakra energy had condensed into a huge sphere. The fire attribute chakra in Makoto's body slowly blended into the Rasengan along with the rhythm of the rope tree. The 2 attributes of chakra, wind and fire, are entangled in the Rasengan, reflecting a green-red color. Naoki and Makoto's hands were tightly together, holding the huge Rasengan that was constantly spinning in their palms, and slowly raised it above their heads. Makoto, it's time to fool. Makoto gave Naoki a firm smile and turned to look at her mother-killing enemy opposite, the excitement in her eyes almost overflowing. Wind and fire Rasengan. The 2 raised their hands high, kicked the water with their feet at the same time, and quickly rushed towards the Sancho Ukanda who was struggling in the illusion. Sanshoyu Shenda was immobilized by the golden binding illusion, but his consciousness was extremely clear. Looking at the physical chakra balls containing the terrifying power of wind and fire in the two people's hands, a long-lost look of fear appeared in their eyes. For Makoto's mother. For mother. Two voices rang in Sanshoyu Kanda's ears at the same time, and the huge wind and fire Rasengan pressed against his body. Naoki stretched out his hand, grabbed Makoto's slender waist and stepped back. Sanshoyu Shenda let out a scream, and was drowned by the sudden burst of wind and fire. The flesh and bones of his body were cut into pieces by the frantic wind blades, and then burned to ashes by the flames. At this point, the general under the ninja world's demigod completely disappeared from this world. Ding! The host kills an elite Junin and receives a reward, a large increase in chakra, a psychic scroll, King Konk. The storm caused by the wind and fire Rasengan slowly subsided, leaving only the Konk King with his clamshell tightly closed. As the system's prompt sounded, it announced the complete demise of Sanshoyu Manda. Chakra was continuously produced from the body, and the rope tree sensed it, and it increased by almost half. The amount of chakra now far exceeds that of Orochimaru sensei, right? Naoki put away his mood, held the small hand under his palm with his backhand, and turned to look at Makoto, who was staring at the place where Sanshoyu Manda disappeared. Makoto, how's it going? I didn't disappoint you, did I? Uchiha Makoto turned her head to look at the rope tree. The two Magatama in her eyes suddenly rotated rapidly. A new Magatama slowly appeared in the middle of the two Magatama, forming an even three Magatama Sharingan shape. Makoto, your eyes. Uchiha Makoto also felt some changes in her eyes. She looked down at the image reflected in the lake, and the three Magatama in her eyes were slowly rotating. Uchiha Makoto stared at Magatama in the reflection and was silent for a while. He raised his head and looked at the rope tree in front of him, his eyes full of confusion. Sanshu-kun, thank you for helping me fulfill my wish. But, I suddenly feel empty in my heart. Naoki held Makoto's hand and pulled her into his arms, stroking her back lovingly. It's okay. If you want to cry, just cry. Makoto leaned quietly in Naoshu's arms, shook her head slightly, and let out a low whimper. My mother's revenge has been avenged, but I will be the only one left in the future. I don't know what I should do next. The rope tree tightened the person in its arms. No. You are not alone. And me, I will stay with you until you get bored. Makoto raised her head, stared into Naoki's eyes, and saw that touch of love. Makoto's eyes trembled slightly, and her heart palpitated. Noseki-kun, is it true? Will you really stay with me forever? Naoki looked at the beautiful face so close and reached out to wipe away the tears from the corners of Makoto's eyes. As long as you are willing to. The girl's eyes suddenly glowed brightly, a thrilling smile appeared on her face, and she nodded vigorously. I will always be by Naoki-kun's side, forever. Hizashi, standing next to Orochimaru, almost rolled his eyes to the back of his head. This kind of scene is really unbearable for a single man like Hizashi who has never tasted love. Snort. You too, this is a battlefield. If you want to make out, please go back. Please, can you consider how Orochimaru-sensei and I feel? Makoto blushed and lowered her head, hiding behind Naoki. Naoki turned around and looked at Hizashi who was smelling sour. He took out the psychic scroll rewarded by the system from his arms and raised his chin slightly at Hizashi. I originally wanted to thank you for helping me remove the illusion and wanted to give you a big gift. But when you said that, I suddenly didn't want to give it to you. After saying that, he shook the scroll in his hand and Hizashi looked regretful. Hizashi was stunned for a moment and looked at the scroll in Nashu's hand. What gift? Seeing that Hizashi did not cooperate with his plan, Naoki immediately gave up his teasing thoughts and threw the scroll away. Hizashi took it and opened it, and the psychic contract scroll depicting the portrait of King Konk came into view. He looked up at the rope tree in disbelief, then at the huge Konk King, and spoke with a trembling voice. Is this the psychic scroll of King Konk? How did you get it? Ro-tree waved his hand. Don't worry about it, just treat it as if you got it from the Sancho fish Shenda. How do you like it? Do you want it? There are not many psychic beasts that are good at illusion, water escape and defense at the same time. If you use illusion to coordinate with your soft fist, the effect will be incredible. I can't even imagine it. If you don't like it, then Hizashi clenched the scroll excitedly and shouted loudly to interrupt Natsuki's words. I like it. I want it. I want it. Don't give it to anyone else. Hizashi cut his palm without hesitation, signed his name on the scroll with his finger stained with blood, and pressed a handprint. He solemnly took the scroll into his arms and put it away. Hizashi impatiently stretched out his hand to form the seal of the psychic technique. Psychic art. The Conch King behind Naoki turned into white smoke and disappeared with a bang, then reappeared in front of Hizashi. King Conch, whose IQ was not very high, sensed the existence of the contractor and did not know that he had changed his master. Two tentacles stretched out from the clamshell and gently touched Hizashi in front of him, sending Hizashi a feeling of joy. Hizashi looked at the huge Conch King in front of him, and the excitement in his heart was indescribable. He reached out and stroked the docile tentacles that the Conch King stretched out in front of him, and his words were even more excited and incoherent. Okay. Knowing water escape can make up for the lack of long-range hand-braking of Ru-Fist. Later, when you learn the Bagua Air Palm, you can cooperate with the water escape ninjutsu of King Conch. In close combat, you can use shells to block damage, and you don't have to rely on just one Kaiden, which consumes a lot of chakra, to support the scene. When you are surrounded, you can use a wide range of illusion attacks. Even if you can't beat it, you can spray water to speed up your escape. Even if you are under an illusion, I can still use my Byakugan to relieve the Conch King. Such a comprehensive psychic beast is what I dream of. Thank you, Rope Tree. If you and Makoto are intimate in front of me from now on, I will definitely pretend that I didn't see it. Shungshu's face darkened. What did this say? Hey, you guy, what are you talking about? Orochimaru walked up to Naoki, interrupted Naoki's arguable argument, and stared into Naoki's eyes nonstop. Teacher. Naoki shrank his neck, knowing that the Sharingan matter would definitely attract Orochimaru's questioning. Tell me, how come you have the eyes of the Uchiha clan? And they are actually 3 Magatama eyes. Facing the disciple he brought up, Orochimaru did not hide his thoughts and directly asked about the Sharingan. Makoto also remembered the Magatama that appeared in Naoki's eyes just now, turned around from behind Naoki, and stared at Naoki's eyes curiously. As for Hizashi, he was still immersed in the great joy of having just obtained the psychic beast, and was playing happily with the Conch King. How can a psychic beast be good if it has a Sharingan but not a Sharingan? Naoshu looked at the two people closest to him besides his sister, and hesitated in his heart whether to confess some truth to them. Ding! The host triggers new choices. Option 1. Confess the existence of the system to Orochimaru and Uchiha Makoto, and explain that he received the Sharingan from the reward given by the system. Reward. Unbind the system and erase all system-related memories of the host. Option 2. Make up a white lie to prove that you have the blood of the Uchiha clan. You have already awakened the Sharingan and evolved to the 3 Magatama. I was just afraid of being exposed in the village, so I chose to hide. Reward. Byakugan. Quote. Option 3. Explain to Orochimaru and Uchiha Makoto that he may be the reincarnation of the Sage of Six Paths. And channel Shinya to tell the story of ancient times to the two. Reward. Sharingan evolves once. Naoki looked at the choices given by the system, was silent for a while, and looked up at Orochimaru. Teacher. If I said that I might be the reincarnation of the immortal of Six Paths, would you possibly believe it? It is detected that the host has completed the selection. Reward. The Sharingan evolves once. The reward has been distributed, please check it with the host. It is detected that the host's Sharingan meets the evolutionary requirements. The 3 Magatama Sharingan evolves into the Mangekyo Sharingan, and the Yin Escape Chakra is transformed into the Mangekyo I power. It has been detected that both the Mangekyo Sharingan and the Senshi are present in the host's body, and the Mangekyo Sharingan's adaptation characteristics are being generated for the host. Characteristic adaptation has been generated, and the host Mangekyo Sharingan has acquired the characteristic, Yin and Yang. The host acquires the special abilities of the Mangekyo Sharingan. Left eye, Takamiko's nest. Right eye, God's nest. The host is qualified to start the first stage of Susanoo. As Naoshu's words came out, system prompts kept ringing in Naoshu's mind. Naoki used great willpower to restrain the ecstatic expression on his face, and looked at Orochimaru seriously. The place suddenly became quiet. Makoto didn't understand who the Sage of Six Paths was in Naoki's mouth, so she didn't feel anything. Orochimaru was different. As a ninja who regards immortality as his life goal, the origin of ninja power is a priority that must be understood in the process of exploring the truth. Orochimaru had discovered in ancient books the story of the Six Paths Sage dispersing chakra and founding the ninja sect. He always thought it was just a legend that existed in mythology. Suddenly hearing this name that few people in the ninja world knew from his disciples, and thinking of all the strange things that had happened to his disciples recently, Orochimaru suddenly felt his throat was a little dry. Rose Tree, where did you hear the name Six Paths Sage? If you don't want to tell the teacher what happened to you, there's no need to fool me with this kind of character who only exists in legends. Orochimaru's voice was a little hoarse. Teacher, actually I also know that if I suddenly say something like this to you, you might not believe it. But I have another way. Naoki shook his head, looked at the tangled look on Orochimaru's face, and asked another question that made Orochimaru confused. Teacher, do you still remember my psychic beast? Orochimaru was stunned and didn't understand why Naoki asked that. Psychic beast. You mean Shinya? Right. Shinya is a creature that has lived from ancient times to the present. The era it lived in was still in the period when the Sage of Six Paths governed the ninja world. It should have a very good understanding of what happened at that time. Why not channel it and ask about it? After all, my memory has just awakened not long ago, and I just have a vague feeling that my identity may be related to the Sage of Six Paths. Orochimaru looked at the sound of Naoshu's words and couldn't help but believe it. He nodded and said, "That's fine. I'm also very curious about what happened at that time. Even if you can't prove your identity, it's good to know a little more about it." Seeing Orochimaru nod, the rope tree trunk formed the seal of psychic skills. Psychic art. In the deepest cave of Longdi Cave, Shinya was directing the parasitic bugs to move a newly caught giant python in front of him, waiting for the bugs to put food into his open mouth. Shinya's single eye flashed with a satisfied smile. He had lived for thousands of years and never thought that one day he would live such a happy life. Since cultivating this group of bugs that can survive in the magic chakra, his life in Raichi Cave has undergone earth-shaking changes. There is no need to worry about food at all. When you are hungry, give the bugs a command, and countless bugs will swarm out to hunt for it, and then bring the food to its mouth, and it only needs to wait to open its mouth to eat. That's it. The key is that these bugs don't need to be managed by it. As soon as the thought goes on, the bugs reproduce, hunt and complete their tasks on their own. Shinya is like a black-hearted capitalist, squeezing these hard-working insects and living a depraved life with peace of mind. Shinya was about to swallow the giant python brought to his mouth when he suddenly felt the call of the psychic contract. With his heart tightening, Shinya, who thought something had happened to the rope tree, gave an order to the insects in his mind. The insects put down the giant python without hesitation and jumped on Shinya's body, forming a thick layer of insect armor. Shinya looked at his current majestic appearance and thought to himself, "This time I must let that brat Shungshu see the results of my secret insect control skills." Seeing that the insect swarm armor was formed, Shinya immediately responded to the rope tree's call and disappeared from Longdi Cave into white smoke. The giant python had been drained of chakra by the bugs and was waiting to die with its eyes closed. Suddenly, I felt that the terrible bugs surrounding my body disappeared. Shinya, who had been domineering in Longdi Cave for so many years and now became even more terrifying, also disappeared at the same time. The giant python was suddenly moved by the feeling of surviving the disaster, and almost shed tears. Sheku let out an excited neigh, cheered, turned around and fled out of the cave. It swore in its heart that if it appeared thousands of miles away from Shinya Cave again, it would be a dog. A huge figure appeared in the small lake accompanied by white smoke. The shallow small lake was squeezed by Shinya's huge body, and the water level rose by more than half a meter out of thin air. "Kid, have you encountered any tough enemies again? Let me see who dares to harm my contractors." Shinya's domineering voice rumbled out, and powerful pressure enveloped him in all directions. The suppression from high-ranking beings made King Konk, who was communicating with Hazashi, tremble in fear. He quickly retracted the tentacles that extended out of the shell, closed the shell tightly, and then turned into smoke with a bang and returned to the psychic world. The few people standing on the small lake have all seen Shinya, and naturally they have also experienced Shinya's terrifying aura. Everyone looked at the terrifying beast covered in black ferocious armor that suddenly appeared on the lake. They were shocked, and at the same time, a question slowly emerged in their hearts. Is this Shinya? Naoshu's eyes almost dropped to the ground. As the same parasite owner, he naturally felt that the armor on Shinya's body was made up of parasites. But he really didn't expect that Shinya would actually develop such a use for the parasite, which really opened his eyes. Shungshu felt a little sour and couldn't help complaining about Shinya in his heart. My goal of Susanata Buddha has not been achieved yet, and you have already put on biological armor. Shinya, you betrayed our friendship. After a second thought, Shungshu suddenly realized something and looked at the insect armor on Shinya's body in surprise. Shinya, have you successfully bred that kind of bug? Shinya lowered his head and glanced around, seeing all of Shungshu's teammates and teachers. He stretched out the snake letter again and sensed the chakra fluctuations around him, and then put away his aura. Hearing Shungshu's question, Shinya opened his mouth and showed a slightly satisfied smile. I wanted to show off in front of the rope tree, so I gave the insects another order in my mind. When the insect swarm received the order, they saw the ferocious armor on the snake's head squirming and changing, and two more sharp horns slowly grew on Shinya's helmet. Of course. How's it going? I've trained these bugs well, haven't I? Ha 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 ha. Shinya, who was laughing happily, was suddenly startled. He lowered his head and looked in front of Shungshu, his eyes suddenly became confused. Kid, besides the aura of Asura, why do you still smell of that lunatic Indra? Have you not? When Shungshu heard Shinya's question, he secretly said, what a great assist. Orochimaru on the side heard Shinya's words and couldn't help but take a few steps forward and came to Shinya. Your Excellency Shinya, who are the Asura and Indra you are talking about? What is their relationship with the rope tree? Shinya glanced at Orochimaru, a hint of surprise flashed in his eyes. Oh, it's you. Kid, I remember you, you are the contractor of that little guy Wan Shi. You are very good. That little guy Wan Shi has suddenly become a lot quieter recently. It must be because of you, right? Orochimaru didn't feel anything wrong with Shinya, an old monster who had lived for thousands of years, calling him a kid. Hearing this, he just nodded and continued to look at Shinya with hot eyes full of curiosity. Shinya felt a little uncomfortable with this kind of gaze. He lowered his head slightly and glanced at the rope tree. The Asura and Indra I'm talking about are the two sons of Otsutsuki Hagoromo. Seeing confusion in Orochimaru's eyes, Shinya suddenly thought that humans might not know who Otsutsuki Hagoromo was, so he explained again. He is the legendary sage of 6 paths in your ninja world. Orochimaru's eyes lit up. It turned out that the sage of 6 paths really existed, and his name was Otsutsuki Hagoromo. This was really a great experience. Shinya turned his attention to Shungshu. Little rope tree kid, what's going on with you? We haven't seen each other for just a few days, and your power has actually begun to evolve into the rudimentary form of the power of 6 paths. Orochimaru simply took out a notebook and wrote down these words that he had never heard of before. Naoki explained to Shinya what he had just explained to Orochimaru. Shinya nodded, lost in thought. After a long time, he slowly said. You said you awakened some memories, but those memories are incomplete, so you want to know from me what happened at that time and see what you can remember again. Naoki and Orochimaru nodded together, and Hazashi and Makoto also came closer, like curious babies ready to listen to a story, with their ears propped up. Well, let me tell you a little bit about it. After all, I was still very weak at that time, and I only heard about many things, which may not necessarily be accurate. Just listen to it as a story. How can anyone have any objections? They all nodded and looked at Shinya expectantly. Shinya sorted it out silently in his mind, and then began to tell his story. When I met that man, he was following Asura, the youngest son of the Sage of 6 Paths. The Sage of 6 Paths at that time wanted to pass on the ninja sect, but there were only 2 candidates qualified to take over the ninja sect, the eldest son Indra, and the younger son Asura. So the 6 Paths Immortal needs to choose a successor from his 2 sons. So the Immortal of 6 Paths set a test for the 2 sons. Using the location of the ninja sect as the boundary, the two of them each choose a direction to calm the chaos in the ninja world and bring peace to the people. The six-path sage will select a successor based on the results, and the other one will be responsible for assisting the ninja sect in managing the ninja world. Although Asura and Indra are brothers, their personalities are very different. Therefore, the methods they choose to pacify the ninja world are also completely different. Asura, who has a gentle personality and loves peace, chooses to use love and faith to influence. If he encounters stubborn enemies, Asura cannot influence them with faith, but he will also use his powerful would escape ninjutsu and immortal body to suppress the enemy, and then plant the seeds of peace. So around him, more and more people who yearn for peace are gathering together, following Asura's footsteps and working hard for world peace. Orochimaru suddenly thought of Senju Hashirama, the first Hokage who pacified the troubled times. According to rumors, his character and behavior were exactly the same as the son of the Sage of Six Paths. But Indra, the other son of the Immortal of Six Paths, is different. He inherited the immortal eyes of the Immortal of Six Paths and has always held the belief that human nature is inherently evil. Indra believes that only by using powerful force to eliminate all those who create chaos can the world usher in true peace. So, Indra chose to use force to conquer and kill. In order to kill more quickly and effectively, Indra created various ninjutsu and seals, and passed these on to those who followed him for power. This is also the source of the ninjutsu and seals used in the ninja world today. While killing, Indra's power grew rapidly, and he soon surpassed Asura and became the second largest, being second only to the Sage of Six Paths at that time. What happened next? Makoto listened carefully and couldn't help but urge. Later, the powerful Indra completed the pacification of half of the ninja world before his younger brother Asura. But when the two of them came back from completing their mission and stood in front of the Sage of Six Paths, the Sage of Six Paths passed the ninja sect to Asura, who was weaker and completed the mission later. Indra, who had an extreme temperament, was furious at this result, and the two brothers turned against each other. So, the war broke out. That battle was so violent. I was still weak at that time, and I was almost out of breath when I looked at the towering wooden Buddha and the perfect Susanoo in the distance. When Uchiha Makoto heard this, she suddenly exclaimed, "Susanoo." Shinya nodded. That's right. Susanoo. Little girl, Indra is the ancestor of your Uchiha clan, and you inherited the sage eyes from him. It's just that no one could reach the level of Indra, so it was gradually called the Sharingan. Everyone in the field couldn't help but feel shocked when they heard this. It turns out that the Uchiha clan is the descendant of the Six Paths sage, no wonder the Sharingan is so powerful. Seeing that everyone was silent, Shinya continued to speak. Almost no one can come close to watch the fight between the two of them. I only know that Indra was defeated by the sudden burst of power from Asura and died soon after. Asura, who inherited the ninja sect, also sent his descendants to the ninja world before his death to continue to maintain the peace of the ninja world for himself. Over a long period of time, Asura's descendants formed two powerful families. They are the Senju clan and the Uzumaki clan respectively. These two families inherited the immortal body that Asura inherited from the Six Paths sage. Their performance in physical skills and chakra is far beyond that of ordinary people. But the story doesn't end here. As the son of the Sage of Six Paths, Indra is not willing to admit his failure in front of his younger brother. So he reincarnated his chakra among the descendants of his clan again and again, hoping to prove to his father that the path he chose was right. After Asura's death, in order to prevent Indra's successor from causing harm to the world again, he also chose to reincarnate chakra into his descendants. So, under the leadership of these two chakra reincarnations, the ninja world began the long warring states period. The major families in the ninja world began a war that lasted for hundreds of years. And the most recent time that their two powers appeared at the same time was that of your first Hokage Senju Hashirama and Uchiha Madara. Everyone was shocked when they heard this. Unexpectedly, the source of chaos in the ninja world comes from here. I didn't expect that the god of ninja world and Madara Uchiha who founded Konoha would actually be the chakra reincarnation of the son of Sage of Six Paths. This was so shocking. When Shinya said this, he suddenly stopped and looked at the rope tree. Kid, come to think of it, are you from the Thousand Hands clan? Naoki nodded and said, my mother is from the Senju clan, and my father is from the Uzumaki clan of the Kingdom of Uzumaki. So my name does not have the surname of Senju in front like the great-grandfather and others. However, if you really want to talk about it, I can be considered a member of the Senju clan. After all, the Uzumaki clan has almost been exterminated except for Grandma Mito and Sister Kushina. Shinya nodded. So that's what I find strange. When I first met you, you just awakened the immortal body and sensed the breath of Asura on your body, so I thought you were the reincarnation of Asura in this generation. Now you actually have the power of Asura and Indra at the same time. The power of yin and yang coexist. Except for the original six paths immortal, this situation has never happened again. No wonder you haven't been to Longdi Cave before, but you can freely use the immortal mode of Longdi Cave. This ability to create something almost out of nothing. Perhaps, it's really like what you said. Maybe you are the reincarnation of the immortal of six paths. After Shinya's popular science on the history of the Six Paths Immortals family in ancient times, several people finally figured out why the rope tree might be the reincarnation of the Six Paths Immortal. Orochimaru was deeply moved in his heart. It turned out that the reason why the shinobi world had been in chaos for so many years was just because the two sons of the Sage of Six Paths were fighting for the family property. Watching Naoshu lift the psychic spell and send Shinya away, Orochimaru turned his gaze to Naoshu and looked at him with a somewhat complicated look. Rose Tree, regarding the source of your power, I think your guess is probably right. Then you are now a rope tree, or... Naoki glanced around at the people present. Hizashi and Makoto had also come back from the story and were looking at him with worried expressions. The weaving of lies requires more lies to fill the holes in the previous lie. Naoshu felt a trace of guilt in his heart, but he felt warm in his heart. After all, there were these people who cared about him. Thinking of this, a bright smile appeared on Naoshu's face. Teacher, Makoto, Hizashi. Perhaps in your opinion, because I may be the reincarnation of the immortal of six paths, I can easily gain power that ordinary people cannot imagine, and I may lose myself under this identity and power. But I only know that no matter what my previous identity was, I am just a rope tree now. Shungshu looked at several people seriously and said in a sincere tone. Seeing that the atmosphere was a bit depressing, Naoshu suddenly put his hands on his hips and laughed. Teacher, don't forget, what is my dream? I am a man destined to pacify this ninja world and reach the top. Furthermore, since I may be the reincarnation of the Sage of Six Paths, let me, as an old father, solve the mess left by two unfilial sons in the ninja world. Ha 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 ha. Hizashi suddenly looked stunned and hesitated to speak. If your identity as Naoki is really the reincarnation of the Sage of Six Paths, wouldn't the first Hokage and Uchiha Madara become your sons? Naoki's face darkened, and he looked at Hizashi with an evil look, and the wind attribute chakra quickly gathered in his hand. Hizashi. You fool, go to hell. Ah. Rope tree, no. I just said it's possible. Ah. Hizashi was spinning around and was blasted away by Naoki with an unformed Rasengan. Makoto looked at the two people fighting with her eyebrows creasing with a smile. Orochimaru also smiled, and his slightly anxious mood suddenly relaxed. It seems that the rope tree is still the same rope tree, that's good, that's good. Seeing that Hizashi, who was constantly apologizing and showing no Hyuga wealthy temperament, was coming back from Naoki, Orochimaru interrupted the two people's nonsense. Okay, now that everyone knows the identity of Shungshu, and Shungshu didn't deliberately avoid you too, but gave you great trust. I hope that what happened to Rope Tree today will only be known to a few of us, okay? Of course, Makoto didn't need to say anything. She came directly to Naoshu and stood next to him, silently expressing her firm stance. Hizashi also stopped playing around and nodded vigorously. Orochimaru-sensei, the rope tree. Don't worry. From the moment the rope tree gave me hope to change my destiny, I decided to follow him. I, Hyuga Hizashi, swear in the name of the future head of the Hyuga branch family that I will never betray you in this life. Orochimaru nodded with satisfaction. Good. That's enough about the rope tree. Our mission objectives today have been successfully completed. I will pass the achievements of the three of you back to Konoha and count them as an A-level mission for you. The eyes of the three rope trees lit up and they let out a small cheer. Now follow me back to clean up the battlefield, and then retreat to the camp. Yes. The sneak attack launched in the morning ended successfully, and Orochimaru returned to the camp with a group of Konoha ninjas who had completed their mission. The Konoha ninjas who stayed behind in the camp heard about today's victory and cheered. After Orochimaru deliberately spread the word about the achievements of the three people, the names of the three people began to be mentioned in the conversations of Konoha ninjas. I heard that the three disciples of Orochimaru-sama were able to kill Sancho Kanda this time. They made a great contribution. Yes. What a young hero. And I heard Orochimaru-sama say that that brat from Naoki is very powerful with water escape. He is worthy of being the grandson of the first and second generations. Yes. I heard that the kid from the Hyuga clan also performed well. This time he used his Byakugan to break the Sancho Kanda's illusion. It's really rare to be able to use the Byakugan so skillfully at such a young age. Why don't you talk about that little girl from the Uchiha clan? I heard that she and Naoki killed the Sancho Kanda together, and she also opened the Sharingan. It seems like 3 Magatama appeared when she opened her eyes. Who did you listen to? How is this possible? I heard what others said. Now Shu and others returned to the camp. Because of these rumors that were beyond recognition, they were constantly being asked about the situation at that time by the Konoha ninjas they met. A few people were so annoyed that they simply hid in their tents, out of sight and out of mind. After all, there are only a few people who go to the battlefield at such an old age like Naoki, so the ninjas of Konoha take good care of the 3 children who dare to go to the battlefield at such a young age and work hard for Konoha, but they give each of them an independent child. Tent. Shungshu was sitting in his tent, thinking that he had just received a new ability from the system, and couldn't wait to enter the system to check it out. System, list my current abilities. Ding. A personal attribute panel has been generated for the host, please check it. Host. Rope Tree. Age. 12 years old. Height. 165 cm. Chakra attributes. Water, Earth, Wind, Fire, Thunder, Yin, and Yang. Chakra amount. Cage level refer to the chakra amount of Orochimaru during his elite Junin period. Psychic beasts. Shinya, shadow level, parasitic worm, fairy magic adaptability. Blood succession limits. Wood release, Mangekyo Sharingan, immortal body. Taijutsu. Konohagakure Goken. Ninjutsu. Mastery of wind release ninjutsu, mastery of water release ninjutsu, wood release series ninjutsu, fire release How Fireball Jutsu, fire release Phoenix Fire Jutsu, fire release Immortal Flower Claw Red. Other attributes will not be listed one by one to save the number of words. Naoki glanced at it and raised his eyebrows. He didn't expect that he already had so many ninjutsu. Skipping the information in the ninjutsu column, Naoki saw a drop-down arrow below the entries for blood releases Wood Release and Mangekyo Sharingan. Now Shu opened it with his mind, and the wooden release ninjutsu he currently mastered appeared under the wooden release entry. I'll skip this for now. There are still many wooden ninjutsu that I haven't learned yet. This time my strength has improved so much at once. When I go back, I'll ask Grandma Mito for the Book of Sealing and learn all the remaining wooden ninjutsu. Naoki set his sights on the entry for the Mangekyo Sharingan, and clicked on it expectantly. There were 2 options below, Genjutsu and Eye Technique. Now Shu ignored the illusion technique and directly clicked on the pupil technique column. Mangekyo Sharingan, characteristics, Yin and Yang. Yin and Yang, the ability of the Mangekyo Sharingan evolved from the Yang escape and Yin escape of the immortal body. The energy consumption of the pupil can be regenerated through the Yang escape ability of the immortal body, and there is no longer the risk of blindness. Yin escape will speed up the regeneration of the immortal human body, and the host will gain the unique characteristic of the immortal human body, Mayan healing. Although it has long been expected that the immortal body combined with the Sharingan will have this ability, it is still quite practical. At least there is no danger of blindness caused by using the Mangekyo Sharingan too much. Rope Tree actually thinks that it is normal to have this attribute. With only half of his body made of Senju Hashirama cells, Uchiha Obito can use his divine power at will without any risk of blindness. Moreover, half of his body is still the product of the degradation of the immortal human body, let alone the Rope Tree with a complete immortal human body. Rope Tree then looked down. Mangekyo Sharingan, left eye Takamikasa. The ultimate yin-yang escape ability derives from the powerful power of creation and destruction. When activated, the powerful yin and yang attributes can be mobilized to give life or death to all things. Mangekyo Sharingan, right eye, God's nest. The eye of the netherworld, which penetrates life and death, is the supreme power that controls the cycle of life and death. All souls existing in the world will be controlled by this eye. Naoshu took a breath, the power of these eyes made his scalp numb. The ability of the left eye should be the prototype of the power of 6 paths mentioned by Shinya. The unity of yin and yang can bring about all things. The tree knows this. The key is that the ability of the right eye is a bit outrageous, it can actually control the soul. What is the soul? The soul is the basis for the existence of all living things in the world. After mastering this ability, doesn't the life and death of all life depend on his thoughts? What kind of filthy land reincarnation? What kind of ban on ghouls? What underworld? What death? In front of these eyes, they are all younger brothers. Really? Look who dies. Shungshu suppressed the shock and ecstasy in his heart and continued to look down. Kaleidoscope's unique ability. Susanoo, first stage. Susanoo. Summon the power of God and transform it into an entity with the ultimate yin escape energy. The form can change according to the development level of Mangekyo Sharingan, can be advanced. Advanced form. Complete Susanoo. The power of kaleidoscope eyes is developed to the extreme, summoning a powerful giant holding the artifact Tianyu Yuzan to fight. With one strike from God, all things are annihilated. Shungshu withdrew from the system without finishing his thoughts. Feeling the strong and rhythmic power in his eyes, the corners of his mouth curved slightly, slowly becoming more and more unrestrained. Ha 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 ha. When this kind of power grows up, I will ask who else is there in this ninja world. Rope tree. You kid, come out here. Hey. Tsunade, Naoki is still a child, don't do anything. Jiraiya, get out of my way. Otherwise I'll beat you up too. This brat sneaked onto the battlefield by himself without telling me. Orochimaru, you are also a fool. If Naoki wants to go to the battlefield, will you allow him to come? Aren't you afraid that he will be in danger? Two familiar voices, a man's and a woman's, reached Shungshu's ears from outside the tent, waking him up from his reverie. The woman's voice was filled with anger and a bit of frustration, and the man was trying to persuade her in a clumsy tone. Sister. Brother Jiraiya. When Naoki heard the voices of Tsunade and Jiraiya, there was a hint of surprise on his face. Shungshu heard the sound of her sister getting closer and closer outside, and knew that she couldn't escape this time. She stood up, opened the curtain and walked out. Sister, brother Jiraiya, why are you here? Naoshu pretended to be surprised on his face, and said hello to the two people who were pulling him, while his heart was beating secretly. Tsunade was stopped by Jiraiya, and she was full of anger with nowhere to vent. When she suddenly heard the sound of the rope tree, she used strong force on her hand, threw Jiraiya away, and turned her head to stare at the rope tree fiercely. The rope tree. You really have strong wings. How dare you not say hello to your sister and secretly follow Orochimaru to the battlefield? Tsunade strode up to the tree, grabbed the tree's ears, and roared loudly. It hurts. It hurts. Sister, I was wrong. Let go, your ears are going to fall off. The rope tree let out an exaggerated cry of pain and begged for mercy. When the Konoha ninjas in the camp heard the commotion, they all came out to watch, pointing at the rope tree that was begging for mercy, and burst into laughter. Tsunade frowned and glared at the ninjas who were watching the excitement. Seeing that the flames of war were about to burn themselves, the crowd dispersed in an instant. Tsunade snorted and let go of Naoki's ears. HMPH. Brat, follow me to Orochimaru's camp. I have something to ask you. After saying that, he turned around and left. Jiraiya shrugged his shoulders at Naoki, made a helpless expression, and hurriedly followed Tsunade. Oh. Tsunade, wait for me. Makoto trotted over to Naoki and looked at Naoki worriedly. Naoki-kun, are you okay? Tsunade-sama looks so fierce. Naoki released his hands covering his ears and gave Makoto a reassuring smile. It's okay, I'm just pretending. I've been used to it since I was little. It'll be fine when she calms down. Makoto breathed a sigh of relief and looked at Tsunade's back with envy. Naoki-kun, your relationship with Tsunade-sama is so good. Naoki gave a wry smile, touched Makoto's hair, and felt a sudden movement in his heart. Does Makoto like my sister? Yeah, Tsunade-sama is very powerful and brave. I have always regarded her as my idol. That's good. I'll introduce you later. I'll go to the camp first. You go back and wait for me. I'll go find you later and teach you a brand new ninjutsu. Naoki told Makoto and hurried towards Orochimaru's camp. Tsunade was still waiting there. If she was late, she might lose her temper again. Arriving outside the tent, Naoki opened the door curtain and walked in. Jiraiya and Tsunade were sitting in the tent, posing as if they were in a meeting of three, staring directly at Naoki who walked in. Naoshu felt a little uncomfortable and scratched his head in embarrassment. Hee. Sister, why did you ask me to come here? If you have anything to do, you can just discuss it with teacher Orochimaru. I have to go back to practice. Orochimaru looked at his disciple's scoundrel appearance, shook his head with a smile, and hurriedly said before Tsunade got angry. Alright, Naoki, I've told them too that it was you who asked me to take you to the battlefield, and you can follow Tsunade, explain. Naoki was immediately discouraged and cast a resentful look at Orochimaru. Now that he knew that there was no way to escape from cheating, Shungshu simply put down the burden in his heart, sat down openly, and made an expression as if he was ready to die. Okay. Now that you already know, I won't hide it anymore. Just ask whatever you want. Tsunade glared at Orochimaru, then turned to look at the rope tree fiercely. Let me ask you, why didn't you tell me that you wanted to go to the battlefield? Naoki shrank his neck and murmured in a low voice, I originally planned to tell you. You didn't go gambling every day, and you decided to find Mr. Orochimaru when I couldn't find you. Tsunade's breath froze, and her expression became a little unnatural. Then I thought again, why should I be embarrassed when I go do what I like? Suddenly he felt confident again and continued to stare at the rope tree with fierce eyes. Then you should also leave a message home and say so before leaving. Do you want to piss me off to death? What if you do something wrong on the battlefield? How do you want me to explain to Grandma? Do you know how worried Grandma is about you? She is so anxious to send a message to the Kingdom of Wind with her ninja eagle to ask Lord Tsukumo if he knows about you. If Lord Tsukumo hadn't told me about this, I wouldn't have known you sneaked onto the battlefield. The more Tsunade spoke, the angrier she became, and her chest heaved violently, causing Jiraiya beside him to look straight in his eyes and swallow hard. Tsunade looks even more beautiful when she's angry. Jiraiya thought to himself. Seeing the anger and worry on Tsunade's face, Naoki also felt a little embarrassed. He cursed the dog system in his heart. It was this guy who made him choose to go to the battlefield. System. You chose it yourself, blame me. Sister, I know I was wrong. But sister, don't worry, I am actually capable of protecting myself. If you don't believe me, ask Mr. Orochimaru. Naoshu's mind was spinning quickly and he quickly threw the ball to the teacher. I'm sorry, Mr. Orochimaru, you were the one who betrayed me first. Orochimaru smiled bitterly, and seeing Tsunade's angry look, he could only nod helplessly. Tsunade, this is not a lie. With his current strength, he may have surpassed us. Tsunade was suddenly startled when she heard Orochimaru's words, and looked at the rope tree with suspicion. Jiraiya also looked away from Tsunade and looked over in surprise. Naoshu chuckled. For some reasons, my current strength has indeed improved a lot. The reasons are very troublesome to explain. I will tell you when I have time in the future. It's not that Naoki doesn't believe Tsunade and Jiraiya, it's just that now that we are in the camp, some things are still inappropriate to talk about here. Orochimaru also echoed. That's right. You all know Naoki's character, and he won't talk big words casually. Moreover, there are many things involved, and there are indeed some secrets that are not suitable to be told here. Let's stop talking about the rope tree for now. Let's talk about you two. Why did you suddenly come to the battlefield of the Kingdom of Rain? Is the battle on your side over? When Tsunade saw Orochimaru mentioning business, she glared at Naoki, gave him a, I'll deal with you later, look, and turned to look at Orochimaru seriously. Although the fighting is not over yet, the situation has basically stabilized now. The spies placed in the Kingdom of Wind sent back the news that Hanzo Sanshoyu has brought people back to the Kingdom of Rain. After Mr. Sarutobi got the news, he was afraid that you wouldn't be able to withstand the pressure alone, so he asked me to come here to join you temporarily. Orochimaru nodded to express his understanding, and then looked at Jiraiya. Jiraiya, what about you? How is the situation over there in the Earth Country? Jiraiya also became serious, sat up straight, took out a piece of information from his arms, glanced at the rope tree, and then handed it to Orochimaru. The Earth Kingdom has no thoughts of launching a war for the time being. After some investigation, I sent the information back to Konoha, and then came to your side. This is the news I received from Sarutobi-sensei on the way. It's about the rope tree. Orochimaru opened it, looked at it, raised his eyebrows slightly, and handed the information to Tsunade calmly. Tsunade, take a look too. Tsunade didn't know what kind of riddle Jiraiya and Orochimaru were playing, so she took the information in confusion. When he opened it, he saw two balls of anger rising in his eyes, and he slapped the information on the table. The simple wooden table groaned under the weight and shattered into pieces of wood with a crash. Asshole! How dare you attack the rope tree? Danzo really doesn't want to live anymore. How long has it been since second grandpa passed away? Has this forgotten the kindness the Thousand Hands clan showed to him? How dare he send someone to sneak attack the rope tree in the middle of the road? Now you actually want to unite with the Aburame clan to ask for an explanation from the Senju clan. Let me see if I go back and tear his roots apart. Naoki was also very curious about the information recorded in the intelligence. He approached Tsunade and carefully pulled the paper out of the pile of wood chips. He stretched out his hand and pressed it on the ground, activated the power of wood escape, and made a new table for Tsunade. Sister, please sit down first and let me see what is written in the information. Tsunade watched Naoki casually create a table with wood release, and she couldn't care less about being angry, and looked at Naoki with surprised eyes. Shungshu, are you telling the truth? Are you so proficient in wood escape now? Naoki waved his hand to signal Tsunade not to be too surprised, saying that these were all basic operations, and looked down at the information recorded on the paper. This information was written by Sarutobi Hiruzen to Jiraiya, and its approximate content is as follows. The roots led by Danzo have been working hard for the prosperity of Konoha and have made huge contributions to this end. By chance, the ninjas at the root discovered that the rope tree had awakened the wood escape ability of the first Hokage, and learned that the rope tree was about to embark on a dangerous battlefield. In order to ensure that this precious power will not be in danger, Danzo decided to send 3 elite ninjas from the root to intercept the rope tree to ensure the safety of the rope tree. Unexpectedly, all 3 root ninjas died during the execution of their mission, leaving a large number of traces caused by the wood release ninjutsu at the scene. As the owner of Mudden, Shenshu is highly suspicious in this matter. So Danzo united with the talkers of the Aburame clan to put pressure on Lord Hokage, trying to get an explanation from the Senju clan. Lord Hokage said that he was also very embarrassed by this matter, so Lord Hokage hoped that Natsuki would return to Konoha as soon as possible to give an explanation to the Aburame clan and Danzo and resolve the matter. Lord Hokage also promised that if the situation is true, he will protect him, the only existing successor of Wood Release, and strengthen the protection of his personal safety. Seeing this, Naoki had a deep understanding of Lord Hokage's ability to manage the village. This hand operation would probably not be possible without a cerebral thrombosis that has lasted for decades. Naoki looked at Jiraiya with a half smile, and held up the information in his hand. Brother Jiraiya, have you read this letter too? Your Hokage teacher is really amazing. Jiraiya smiled awkwardly, and he was quite dissatisfied with what Sarutobi-sensei did. Haha. Naoki, Mr. Sarutobi also said that he will ensure your safety. Why don't you go back to Konoha first? Orochimaru snorted, and his gaze slowly turned cold as he stared at Jiraiya. Jiraiya. Is your brain flooded? Can't you see this obvious trap? If Naoki goes back, he will definitely be controlled by Sarutobi-sensei and Danzo and used as a tool to achieve their goals. Do you still have fantasies about the Hokage-sama who wears the same pants as Danzo? Jiraiya's expression changed slightly, and he looked at Orochimaru and Tsunade with a complicated expression. Orochimaru, but he is our teacher after all. I don't think he will do anything to the rope tree. Tsunade snorted and turned her head. If his brother's life is involved, what about the teacher? My grandpa is a 2-generation Hokage, My grandma is a Jinchuriki of the Nine Tails, and she is also a princess jointly canonized by the daimyo of the Land of Whirlpool and the Land of Fire. Who do I, Tsunade, need to give face to? Who deserves it? Orochimaru sneered and looked at Jiraiya. Jiraiya, you often do tasks outside. I can understand that there are some things you don't know. But you should have heard of someone, right? Jiraiya raised his head and looked at Orochimaru in confusion. Who? The person who served as the second-generation Shadow Guard with Danzo, Uchiha Kagami. Jiraiya nodded. I've heard of it. I remember he's dead. I heard Sarutobi-sensei say that after he became Hokage, he once issued a mission to the members of the escort team. Go to the Kingdom of Thunder to find the body of the second-generation master and bring it back. The person who performed the task will be Uchiha Mirror. According to Sarutobi-sensei, that mission was very dangerous. Kagami Uchiha died in that mission, and even Danzo lost one eye before he could complete the mission. But what does this matter have to do with the rope tree? How can anyone not die after completing the mission? Orochimaru glanced at his two closest partners and disciples in the tent, and sneered. Ha ha. Before I came to the battlefield of the Kingdom of Rain, Danzo sent someone to look for me. Tsunade and Jiraiya were stunned, not understanding what Orochimaru wanted to say. Naoki looked at Orochimaru with a thoughtful look in his eyes. He asked me to resign as the battlefield commander of the Kingdom of Rain and continue to stay at the route as his bodyguard. And restart the experiment of the first generation of adults would escape cell research. Tsunade and Jiraiya's expressions changed greatly, and they looked at Orochimaru in disbelief. Naoki showed a genuine expression, knowing that Orochimaru still had something to say, so he continued to be a quiet listener. Don't worry, I refuse. Tsunade and Jiraiya breathed a sigh of relief. But do you know what I found on Danzo? What did you find? Tell me quickly, it's so exciting and annoying. Tsunade frowned and asked impatiently. Danzo's eyes are not blind. Instead, he has been replaced with an eye that is far more powerful than the three Magatama Sharingan. After Orochimaru finished speaking, he looked at the shocked Tsunade and Jiraiya with satisfaction. Jiraiya felt his throat was a little dry, so he swallowed hard, and said with a trembling voice, before the Uchiha clan knows that they will die in battle, they will take the initiative to destroy their eyes to prevent the Sharingan from leaking out. No one in the ninja world has ever obtained the Sharingan. How did Danzo get it? Orochimaru, could you have seen it wrong? Unless. Orochimaru saw that Jiraiya had somewhat understood, and he grinned with a sinister smile. Unless you are completely unprepared and are attacked by the most trusted person, there is no chance of destroying your eyes, right? Jiraiya was shocked, and a thought in his mind told him that this was the truth. However, this does not mean that Sarutobi-sensei knew that Danzo himself might have done it. Orochimaru burst out laughing, and a wave of chakra suddenly rose up in his body. Jiraiya, release your perception. After being a teammate for such a long time, what does the chakra fluctuation in my body feel like in your perception? Is it familiar? Is it possible to determine my identity in an instant without seeing the person at all and just relying on perception? Jiraiya staggered and sat down on the stool. The image of Sarutobi Hiruzen as a perfect and gentle elder in his mind collapsed at this moment. No. Sarutobi-sensei is the person who inherited the will of fire from the second master. How could he allow Danzo to do such a thing? Even so, there is no way he would attack Naoki. Naoki is Tsunade's younger brother. Orochimaru scoffed. HMPH. Jiraiya, don't be naive. He is no longer the Hokage who only serves Konoha. Send the Uchiha clan, who is good at fire escape, to the battlefield of the Kingdom of Rain, and send Tsukumo Hatake, who is good at swordsmanship and close combat, to the Kingdom of Wind, and let him face Tsunagaku's puppets and poison. Doesn't he understand the conflicting relationship between the attributes of ninjutsu? Doesn't he understand that ninjutsu is restrained by poison and long-range attacks? But he still does it. Is this something that a Hokage who is dedicated to the village can do? He has long been corrupted by power and status. Jiraiya slumped in his seat, his eyes becoming vacant and confused. Jiraiya, I'm not afraid to tell you. The talent of the rope tree is beyond everyone's imagination. He will stand at the top of the entire ninja world in the future and calm all the disputes in this world. Before that, I will stand behind him and help him regain Konoha established by the Senju clan. What's your decision? Will you continue to guard those high-level officials who have been corrupted by desire, or will you work with us to create a new order and bring permanent peace to this world? Jiraiya's heart was in chaos. Dark clouds once again shrouded the sky over the land of rain, and the drizzle of rain covered the rain-hidden tree, making it look a bit desolate. Sanshoyu Hanzo led the Omegakure ninja troops who had returned from the battlefield of the Kingdom of Wind, and frowned at the quiet Omegakure village through the hazy rain and mist. The rainy weather all year round in the land of rain has created a unique lifestyle in Yuyin village. The people living here have long been accustomed to living in rainy weather all year round. As long as they open their oil paper umbrellas, a little rain will not affect the residents of Yuyin village from going out. Although the land of rain is currently at war with two ninja villages at the same time, the streets of rain-hidden village are usually lively. The strange silence in Yuyin village now seems very abnormal to Hanzo. As a well-known demigod in the ninja world, Sanshoyu Hanzo is not worried about encountering threats at his doorstep. He waved his hand to stop the Omegakure ninjas who were following him, and signaled them to stay where they were for the time being. He used a teleportation technique to appear in front of the gate of Omegakure village. Quickly inform others. Someone wants to break into Yuyin village. A ninja who was guarding the dark side of the gate suddenly felt someone appearing outside the village gate. While calling his companions loudly, he subconsciously took out the flare at his waist and was about to launch it. Hanzo held his breath and came to Yunin's side, put the gas mask hanging around his neck on him, grabbed the flare in Yunin's hand, and stopped his actions. Good alertness. It's me. Yu Ren did not expect that the coming person would be so fast. He would appear next to him in an instant and control himself. He was so shocked that he had to resist with all his strength. Hanzo's familiar voice reached his ears, and the rain ninja's body relaxed instantly, and he turned his head to look at the god in their hearts excitedly. Lord Hanzo, you are finally back. Hanzo frowned as he looked at the excited ninja in front of him who seemed to be crying at the next moment. He released the hand that controlled his body. What happened? Why are you so nervous? Where are the people in the village? When the rain ninja heard Hanzo's question, he couldn't help but feel sad. He knelt down in the rain and cried loudly. Lord Hanzo, all the brothers on the front line are dead. We have even lost contact with Lord Sanchio Yukanda, and we haven't even found his body. A cold glint flashed in Hanzo's eyes, but his face did not have the anger that the Omegakure ninja had imagined. Get up. Notify others that I'm back. In addition, send someone to notify the ninjas who came back from the Kingdom of Wind with me to gather under the tower. The ninja who was kneeling on the ground stood up and wiped away his tears. Knowing that Master Hanzo would definitely ask for an explanation from Konoha who had sneaked up on them, he excitedly agreed and ran to convey the order in an excited mood. Sanshoyu Hanzo watched the ninja leave, sighed, and walked towards the village. Along the way, all the residents facing the street closed their doors. Occasionally, the suppressed cries of children could be heard, but they were quickly scolded by adults to stop. When Hanzo heard this, he couldn't help but feel a little more annoyed. I just want to make the Kingdom of Rain stronger, so that I can get rid of the fate of the Kingdom of Rain surviving in the cracks of the major ninja villages and becoming a battlefield again and again. Am I really wrong? Sanshoyu Hanzo thought of his defeat on the battlefield of the Kingdom of Wind, and what the young samurai said to him when he attacked the Kingdom of Iron. Sanshoyu Hanzo, you have violated the moral principles of a warrior and started this unjust war without authorization. You have insulted the name of a demigod. Although I, Mifune, am no match for you, I will never let you step into the Kingdom of Iron until I die. Hanzo murmured. Mifune. Although you were right. I also admit that what I did went against the spirit of the samurai. But while I am a samurai, I am also the leader of a village. I just want to win the right to live in this ninja world for the land of rain. Sanshoyu Hanzo clenched his fists, silently strengthening his belief that he must win this war. Hanzo, standing in front of the tower, quietly looked at the hundreds of rain ninjas wearing gas masks standing in front of him. The Omegakure ninjas were also looking at him with admiration and excitement. I'm back. The group of Omegakure ninjas standing in the rain suddenly cheered and shouted to vent their fear and anger for so many days. Lord Hanzo, please lead us to attack Konoha. Avenge those dead brothers. Yes, Lord Hanzo. Please give me the order. Hanzo waved his hand to suppress the voice of the Omegakure ninja. I already know about the loss of the Konoha battlefield camp and the possible death of Mita. Our ninjas will not die in vain, and Kanda's revenge must be sought from Konoha. Those who followed me back from the Kingdom of Wind will have a day off today. Tomorrow, I will take you to take revenge on Konoha. The Omegakure ninjas in the field were quiet for a moment, and the next moment, the sound of roaring mountains and tsunami broke through the rain curtain. Revenge! 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 Orochimaru's words in the camp made Tsunade and Jiraiya fall silent. The low pressure surrounding Jiraiya made Naoki feel oppressive and uncomfortable, so he found an excuse and escaped. It started to rain lightly outside at some point, and it seemed that it would be impossible to teach Makoto ninjutsu outside. Braving the light rain, Naoshu jogged all the way to Makoto's tent. Makoto, can I come in? Uchiha Makoto, who was waiting in the tent, heard Naoki's voice, stood up, opened the curtain, and showed a smile to Naoki. Sangshu-kun, welcome back, please come in. Naoki was secretly happy when he saw that Makoto looked like a little woman waiting for her husband to come home. Brother Jiraiya brought some news from Konoha, so he stayed in the camp for a while. Are you anxious to wait? Uchiha Makoto shook her head and showed an understanding smile. It's okay, Naoki-kun, I'm just learning a ninjutsu, I'm not in a hurry. And it's still raining outside. It's okay if you can't study. It'll be great if you can come. His watery eyes looked at the rope tree, and the affection in his eyes almost overflowed. Naoki's heart felt hot, and he reached out to hold Makoto's shoulders, almost unable to control his thoughts. I thought silently in my mind, she is still young. Single quote. Shungshu kept reminding himself in his heart not to make such a principled mistake. He gave Makoto a gentle smile and said, it doesn't matter, I have a way for you to learn this ninjutsu right here. Naoki closed his eyes and then opened them again, and the Scarlet 3 Magatama Sharingan appeared in his eyes. Have you forgotten? I also have the Sharingan. I use my pupil power to pull your consciousness into my illusion space. We can study in it without fear of being disturbed by others. Uchiha Makoto's eyes lit up, and she looked into Naoki's eyes excitedly. Sangshu-kun, you are so awesome, I didn't even think of such a method. The corner of Naoshu's mouth curled up. Then what are you waiting for? Let's get started. In the fantasy space, Naoki and Makoto stood opposite each other, surrounded by training facilities constructed by Naoki using illusion techniques. Chakra surged in Naoki's hand, and a Rasengan slowly condensed out. The pale blue chakra sphere slowly rotated in his hand, bringing with it a breeze. Makoto, do you remember the ninjutsu you used when we defeated Sancho Kanda together? Uchiha Makoto was mesmerized by the beautiful chakra sphere in front of her, which was emitting dazzling light, and nodded subconsciously. When she and Naoki used the wind and fire Rasengan to kill Sancho Kanda, Uchiha Makoto only had the thought of revenge in her heart, and Naoki did the rest. She just transferred chakra to the rope tree's hand, rushed forward together, and then the battle was resolved. At that time, she had not noticed that this powerful ninjutsu looked so beautiful in appearance. So beautiful. Naoki-kun, is this the new ninjutsu you want to teach me? Naoki nodded and held out the Rasengan in front of Makoto. It's called the Rasengan, and the learning difficulty level is A. It's a Muji ninjutsu that is released by spinning non-attribute chakra. This is what it looks like after I add wind attribute chakra. Makoto, open your Sharingan and carefully observe its structure. Although its learning difficulty is level A, it shouldn't be difficult for you who have the 3 Magatama Sharingan. Uchiha Makoto nodded obediently, opened her Sharingan, and carefully observed the chakra movement of the Rasengan in Naoki's hand. With the powerful insight of the 3 Magatama Sharingan, it didn't take long for Makoto to understand the structure of the Rasengan. He looked away from the Rasengan and looked at the rope tree with an eager look on his face. Rose Tree-kun, after my observation, I feel that I should be able to use it. After dispersing the concentrated chakra in his hand, the light breeze around him disappeared, and Naoki gave Uchiha Makoto a smile with encouraging eyes. Then give it a try. Don't use chakra with attributes for the first time, take your time. Makoto nodded, pursed her lips and began to concentrate chakra in her hands seriously. A ball of transparent chakra without attributes began to condense in Uchiha Makoto's hand, slowly spinning under her control. Uchiha Makoto concentrated her mind and began to rotate and compress chakra according to the method she observed. Finally, a chakra ball with a faint white light appeared in the hands of Uchiha Makoto. Uchiha Makoto's eyes sparkled as she looked up at the rope tree. Nangshu-kun, I succeeded. There was unabashed praise on Naoshu's face, and he nodded in approval. As expected of you, Makoto. Next, slowly input your chakra attributes to change the properties of the Rasengan. Makoto put away her excitement and began to seriously mobilize the fire chakra in her body, injecting them into the Rasengan in her hand. A flash of bright red suddenly appeared in the white Rasengan, and quickly filled the entire Rasengan, dyeing the entire sphere red. The hot breath emanated from the Rasengan in Uchiha Makoto's hand, making their faces turn red. Uchiha Makoto looked at the rope tree with joy, and stretched out the flame Rasengan in her hand in front of him, with a trace of expectation in her eyes. Somehow, Naoki instantly understood what Makoto meant, stretched out his hand and held it under her soft little hand, mobilizing the wind attribute chakra in his body and injecting it into Makoto's hand. With the injection of wind attribute chakra, the Rasengan in Uchiha Makoto's hand gradually turned red and blue, and waves of terrifying fluctuations emanated from it. With a thought in Naoshu's mind, he instantly transformed the training facility in the fantasy world into a ninja, none other than the Sansho fish Kanda who had just died in their hands. Sanshoyu Kanda who is in the underworld, thank you to your whole family. Uchiha Makoto's eyes lit up when she saw the Sansho Kita appearing in the field. She looked at Naoki and once again raised the Rasengan in tacit agreement and rushed towards the Sansho Kita at the same time. In an instant, the terrifying power of wind and fire raged, and the Sanshoyu Gota let out a scream and turned into ashes again. Nusuke-kun, is this move called the Wind and Fire Rasengan? It's so powerful. Naoki grabbed Makoto's happy little hand and suddenly said in a low voice. Makoto, actually this move has another name. The girl was confused. Huh. What's your name? This move is called Couple Rasengan. As soon as she finished speaking, Makoto suddenly blushed with embarrassment, but she did not lower her head like before. Instead, she mustered up the courage to look directly into Naoshu's eyes. Naoshu could no longer restrain the impulse in his heart, hugged the girl into his arms, and slowly lowered his head. The next day, it rained heavily all night, and finally stopped when the sky was just getting light. The sky showed no signs of clearing up, it was still gloomy. The thick clouds hung low and heavy, making people's hearts pounding. Sanjiao Hanzo stayed up all night. He glanced at the sky outside the window, picked up the chain sickle leaning on the bedside, stood up and pushed the door open. Under the tower, there were already many impatient Omegakure ninjas. Seeing Sanshoyu Hanzo fully armed walking up to the tower, the flames in the eyes of the ninjas burned even hotter. Sanshoyu Hanzo glanced at the Omegakure ninjas present and nodded secretly, morale is available. Are you all ready? Please give the order. Hanzo-sama. Okay. Let's go now. Target, Konoha Camp. Yes. Uniform shouts rang out from under the tower, making the clouds in the sky seem to tremble. Outside the Konoha camp, Ichiro Kambara, who had led the team on duty all night, was handing over work to his companions who had come to change the guard. The weather in the rain country is really crazy. It rained all night and didn't stop until dawn. What bad luck. Kanbaru Ichiro, who was wearing a Konoha Chunin vest, yawned and complained to his companions who came to change the guard in a somewhat depressed mood. Haha. There's nothing we can do about it. This is the land of rain, it's just like this, just get used to it slowly. Yesterday, the other two disciples of the third Hokage, Tsunade Hime and Jiraiya-sama, also came. Together with Orochimaru-sama, this war should be over soon, right? Then I can go back and have a good rest. The ninja school is already on holiday, and I don't know how my kid is doing this year. The companion comforted the haggard Ichiro Kambara, with a little expectation on his face. Oh, I wish. It's so bad here. Okay, I'll leave this to you. I'll go back and have a good sleep first. After Ichiro Kambara handed over the task, he felt a little sleepy. He couldn't help but yawned, waved goodbye to his companions, and was about to go back to rest. In the past few days, because he was afraid that Yuyan village would send people to sneak attacks, he had been patrolling day and night, and his spirit was indeed a little unbearable. Be careful. Enemy attack. A loud shout from his companion frightened Kanbaru Ichiro, and he subconsciously reached for his ninja bag. PFF'd. There was a sound of a sharp blade penetrating into flesh, and Ichiro Kambara felt his throat go cold. The hand reaching for the knife bag felt like it was carrying a heavy burden, and he could no longer reach any further. The body fell softly, and the dilated pupils reflected a rain ninja wearing a gas mask. Almost instantly, he appeared behind the other companions at the same time. The sickle in his hand was waved high, and the knife fell with his hand. Darkness attacked Kanbaru Ichiro's brain like sleep, and his consciousness fell into eternal sleep. Can you finally sleep? What a pity. Sanshoyu Hanzo kicked away the fallen Konoha ninja body, looked coldly at the chaotic Konoha camp, and reached out to take off the gas mask on his face. Streams of mist containing violent Sanshotoxin surged out of his body as he breathed, spreading towards Konoha's camp. A dense group of Omegakure ninjas wearing gas masks emerged from the woods and stood behind Sanshoyu Hanzo. Sanshoyu Hanzo raised his right hand high, waved it downward fiercely, and uttered a word coldly under the mask. Kill. The murderous intent rising into the sky, accompanied by the rain ninjas' shouts of killing, filled Konoha's frontline camp. The low clouds in the sky seemed to be shaken, and suddenly opened a hole, and large raindrops fell from the clouds, gradually becoming denser. Psychic art. Hanzo, the Sansho fish, formed a seal of spiritualism and channeled a giant Sansho fish named Ibushi. As soon as Sansho Yufang appeared, he opened his mouth and spat out a large mouthful of venom in the direction of the Konoha camp. The highly toxic Sanshotoxin blended into the rainwater and fell overwhelmingly into the Konoha camp. The Konoha ninja who was about to launch a counterattack had never seen such a terrible poison. Without any precautions, he was doused by the poisonous rainwater. In a moment, his face turned blue, he screamed and fell to the ground, and soon became silent. When Orochimaru came out of the camp and saw the miserable death of the Konoha ninjas, his pupils suddenly shrank and he turned his attention to Tsunade. Tsunade, is there any way you can detoxify the Sansho fish? Tsunade looked at the giant Sansho fish that was spitting out poison with a serious face. Without waiting for Orochimaru's inquiry, Tsunade directly used her psychic technique to channel the slug of the wet bone forest, which was best at healing. Psychic art. The white smoke quickly disappeared in the rain, revealing a huge slug. The slug wriggled its huge body, its 4 long tentacles swayed happily, and made a soft female voice. Tsunade-sama, why did you use so much chakra this time? My body after channeling is so big. Tsunade doesn't talk nonsense either. Slug, the situation is urgent, there is no time to explain, please help detoxify. The slug sensed Tsunade's anxious mood and did not dare to delay. The 2 pairs of tentacles on its head touched each other and let out a sweet cry. The slug split. The huge slug's body exploded and turned into hundreds of cat-sized slugs, which quickly climbed onto the poisoned Konoha ninja. The mucus flowing down the slug's body emits a burst of soft green light and slowly penetrates into the bodies of the ninjas. Tsunade-sama, this kind of toxin is relatively rare among biological toxins. It enters the body of the ninja through breathing and rain, and is rapidly destroying the human body's organs. I have no way to completely clean out the toxin that has entered the body of the ninja. Tsunade's brows knitted together when she heard Slug's words. He gritted his teeth and called out to Orochimaru. Orochimaru, there is no solution to this poison for the time being. Let the ninjas retreat first. Come with me to kill that Sansho fish. We can't let it continue to spray venom. Jiraiya, you cover their retreat, notify everyone, hold your breath, don't be contaminated with venom again. Naoki, you guys go help Jiraiya. Let's go. Tsunade instantly judged the situation on the field and decisively issued the order. For a moment, the future 5th generation Hokage's methods were undoubtedly revealed. Naoki looked at Ibushi, who was lying at the feet of Sansho Hanzo, spitting venom, and the Omegakure ninjas who were wreaking havoc among the Konoha ninja team, and was about to step forward to stop them. Hearing Tsunade's sudden order, he couldn't help but be stunned. The system prompts in my mind sounded at the right time. Ding! The host triggers new choices. Option 1. Obey Tsunade's order and cover the Konoha ninjas' withdrawal from the country of rain. Reward. Mastery of Earth Release Ninjutsu. Option 2. Lead the team members to assist Orochimaru and Tsunade. When they attack Sancho Hanzo, clear out the pursuing ninjas in the hidden rain village, buying time for Jiraiya to cover the retreat of Konoha ninjas. Reward. Mastery of Thunder Release Ninjutsu. Quote. Option 3. Leave the task of covering the retreat of Konoha ninjas to Uchiha Makoto and Hyuga Hazashi, and stay to assist Orochimaru, Tsunade, and Jiraiya in defeating Sanho Hanzo and Omegakure ninjas. Reward. Mangekyo Hitomi Power Advancement. Seeing the choices given by the system, Roshu chose the third option without hesitation. Following the selection of the rope tree, a cool feeling came from the eyes, and the power of the Mangekyo Sharingan increased rapidly. The rope tree quickly formed a seal of necromancy and summoned Shinya. Shinya, help me take Makoto, Hazashi, and the ninjas protecting Konoha to break out from here, please. Shungshu didn't waste any time and directly handed over the task to Shinya. As soon as Shinya appeared, he sensed the toxins in the rain and closed the nictitating membrane on the snake's eyes to prevent the venom from entering the eyes. Hearing the urgency in Naoki's words, he nodded his huge head, released all the bad things on his body, and pounced on the Omegakure ninja who was chasing the Konoha ninja. The ability to adapt to the environment is frighteningly strong, as Jisai, who can live in the magic of magic, has completely adapted to the toxin of the Sancho fish in just a moment. Under Shinya's order, an overwhelming force rushed towards the Omegakure ninjas. The pursuing Omegakure ninjas were suddenly blocked, and they struggled to get rid of the entanglement of these insects. Shinya's huge body was like a crazy tank, directly destroying the walls around the Konoha camp, revealing a large gap. Seeing the hope of escape, the Konoha ninjas fled out of the gap. Makoto, Hazashi, you two follow Shinya and protect the retreat of Konoha ninjas. I will stay to help my sister and the others. Makoto looked at the rope tree, her eyes full of worry and reluctance. Naoki gently stroked Makoto's rain-wet hair, and her tone became a little gentler. Obey. It's too dangerous for you two here. Don't worry about me, I will protect myself. You guys wait in Konoha for me to go back. Makoto also knew that she shouldn't distract Naoki by showing off her little daughter attitude at this time. Although he was full of worries, he still nodded obediently, gritted his teeth, turned around and rushed out of the camp with Shinya. Hazashi also nodded towards the rope tree and followed closely behind Makoto. When Naoki saw Makoto and the two leaving, he suddenly felt relieved and stared coldly at Sancho Hanzo who was fighting with Orochimaru and Tsunade. Although Orochimaru and Tsunade are extraordinary in strength, they are not completely immune to the toxins of the Sancho fish. They just try their best to hold their breath and attach chakra to their bodies, barely holding on under the attack of Hanzo the Sancho fish. Jiraiya, who covered the departure of the Konoha ninja, quickly stabilized the situation with the help of Shinya. He saw his two friends struggling to hold on under the attack of Sancho Hanzo. He handed over the task to Shinya, turned around and rushed back. Psychic Art. Gamma Bunta of MT. Myoboku appeared from the smoke with a pipe in his mouth and the webbed right arm holding the handle of a long sword hanging on his body. The huge frog eyes narrowed slightly and looked at the battle in the field. Jiraiya, you guys are really going to cause trouble for me. Even if I get some of the poison from the Sancho fish, I'll still be in pain for a long time. Jiraiya didn't have the usual cheerful look on his face. He looked at the battle seriously and explained to Bunta. I'm sorry Bunta. I know it's dangerous, but I want to help my friends. This fight, please. Wentai took a long drag on his pipe and blew out the smoke. Then what do you need me to do? Sanchoyu Hanzo is very fast, and with my swordsmanship, I can't do anything to him. Leave Sancho Hanzo to us to deal with it later. The most troublesome thing now is the poison spewed out by Ibushi. I use fire escape, you help me spray the oil, and we burn these toxins, so that at least we won't be timid when fighting. Bunta nodded, approving of Jiraiya's tactics. Okay. Let's start. Seeing that Bunta agreed, Jiraiya did not dare to delay and quickly formed seals with his hands. Fire release big flame bullet. A hot flame spurted out from Jiraiya's mouth and turned into a huge fireball in an instant. While Jiraiya was spitting out fireballs, Bunta took the pipe out of his mouth, slapped his left web on his belly, and sprayed out a large amount of special oil, which melted into Jiraiya's fireballs. Ninja technique, toad oil flame bullet. True to the saying of adding fuel to a fire, Jiraiya's fireball instantly ignited the oil as soon as it touched it. The violently expanding fireball roared towards Sanshou Hanzo with terrifying high temperatures. Orochimaru, Tsunade, get out of the way. Jiraiya shouted loudly, and after many years of cooperation, Orochimaru and Tsunade, who were fighting, did not even think about it. At the same time, they activated the teleportation technique to avoid the attack range of the fireball. Seeing the terrifying power of the fireball, Sanshou Hanzo knew that he couldn't directly attack it, so he also used the technique of teleportation to dodge the attack. The Sanshou fish under his feet was too slow to avoid, and turned into smoke with a bang and returned to the psychic world. Boom! There was a loud explosion, and the huge flame bomb hit the ground and exploded instantly. The terrifying high temperature evaporated all the rainwater on the ground. The poisonous Sanshou fish remaining in the air made a crackling sound under the burning of the flames. A burning smell like protein being decomposed permeated the Konoha camp. The high temperature burned almost all the air around them in an instant, but after all, there was no trace of the poison, and Orochimaru and Tsunade finally breathed in the air with a slightly burning smell. After taking a few sharp breaths, Tsunade turned around and gave a thumbs up to Jiraiya, who was standing on Buntai's head. Jiraiya, good job. Orochimaru was not injured except that his face looked paler. The corners of his mouth curved slightly, and his narrow snake eyes glanced sideways at Jiraiya. I didn't expect that this fool's brain would still have some sparks. Jiraiya jumped off Buntai's head and guarded his two friends. He stared at Sanshou Hanzo in the distance and let out a proud laugh. Ha ha. Stinky snake. Don't underestimate me. I am Jiraiya, the Toad Sage of MT. Myoboku. This method is just trivial. Tsunade resisted the urge to punch him. Her eyes were also fixed on Sanshou Hanzo, but she asked Jiraiya. Jiraiya, didn't I ask you to cover the retreat of Konoha ninjas? Why are you back? Jiraiya glanced at the rope tree standing in the distance with the corner of his eye, and lowered his voice slightly. That brat from the rope tree is really awesome. His psychic beast skills are not ordinary. I feel that it is much stronger than me. After I gave it the task of escorting the ninja, I came back to help. Orochimaru was not surprised. After all, he saw Shinya's strength, and it was indeed much stronger than the rest of them. Tsunade was a little surprised. She hadn't met Shinya yet. When she heard Jiraiya say this, she felt a burst of jealousy in her heart. This brat didn't even tell me that he had such a powerful psychic beast, which made me worry about his safety. Let's see how I deal with him when we get back. Jiraiya licked his lips at Tsunade, gesturing for her to look over there. There's no need to go back, the little guy Shungshu didn't leave at all. Tsunade was startled and was about to turn her head to look at the rope tree. The burning flames in front of Sanshou Hanzo were gradually extinguished by the rain. He pressed his feet harder and activated the teleportation technique. The figure instantly appeared in front of Tsunade, who was in a daze, and waved a large number of kunai with detonating talismans in his hand, wrapping around Tsunade. Detonate the flame array. Sanshou Hanzo's emotionless voice sounded, and the seal in his hand changed, and the detonating talisman lit up with a burst of fire, burning quickly in the rain. Tsunade, be careful. Ninja technique, Needle Jizo. Jiraiya had been staring at Sanshou Hanzo's position. When he saw him suddenly disappear, he subconsciously hugged Tsunade into his arms. The thick white hair behind him exploded instantly, forming a huge barrier to protect himself and Tsunade. Boom! The air wave formed by the violent explosion hit the barrier formed by the hair, instantly cutting a huge gap in the barrier. His messy white hair was flying, and Jiraiya's body looked like he had been hit by a train, trying hard to protect his arms. Tsunade spurted out a large mouthful of blood and flew backwards. Latent Shadow Snake Hand. Hanzo was about to take advantage of the victory when Orochimaru's hands turned into several thick pythons, which passed through the rain and wrapped around Hanzo's body. Jiraiya. When Orochimaru saw that he had succeeded with one blow, he turned around and shouted. Jiraiya's eyes lit up. He struggled to stand up, gritted his teeth to hold back the injuries on his body, and quickly formed seals in his hands. Tsunade stretched out her hand and pressed down on Jiraiya, channeling her chakra into his body in the most gentle way to enhance the power of Jiraiya's ninjutsu. Okay. Let's see Jiraiya-sama's ninjutsu. Ninja technique, Needle Hell. The chakra in Jiraiya's body was crazily stimulated, and the white hair on his head turned into countless sharp Sanbon rain, which were densely shot at Hanzo, the Sanshoyu who was tied in place. Sanshoyu Hanzo's expression remained unchanged, a trace of disdain flashed in his eyes, and his body instantly turned into a stream of water and disappeared. Water escape water blinking technique. Jiraiya was shocked when he saw that the attacks he tried with all his strength were ineffective. He could no longer hold on to his body's injuries and fell softly. Jiraiya, how are you? Tsunade hurriedly helped Jiraiya up, stretched out her hand to wipe away the blood flowing from the corner of his mouth. The light of the palm senjutsu in her hand lit up, and pressed it on Jiraiya's chest. Jiraiya coughed up a mouthful of blood, stretched out his hand and gave Tsunade a thumbs up, showing his teeth covered in blood. Ahem. I'm fine. This little injury can't do anything to me, Jiraiya-sama. Tsunade, you're not hurt, are you? Seeing Jiraiya's forced smile, Tsunade was still in the mood to worry about herself, and her heart palpitated. Orochimaru flashed to the side of Jiraiya and Tsunade, looking solemnly at Hanzo who had channeled Sanshoyu again, and his heart slowly sank. Hanzo's teleportation technique is so terrifying, even the joint attack of the three of us can't do anything to him. Is that the end? Sanshoyu Hanzo stood above Ibushi, looking down at the three of them. He reached out and slapped the poison sac on his abdomen, and a gloomy green poisonous mist surged out from the poison sac, quickly filling the air and shrouding Tsunade and the others. Jiraiya's expression changed, and he was about to activate fire release again, but suddenly he felt dizzy and the chakra in his body was rapidly draining. Tsunade and Orochimaru felt the rapid loss of chakra in their bodies, and their expressions changed at the same time. Within a moment, the three psychic beasts turned into smoke and returned to the psychic world because the chakra that maintained their appearance disappeared. The three of them barely supported each other to stand still, looking at Sansho Hanzo with confusion and a hint of fear. Sanshoyu Hanzo didn't know when he put the gas mask back on, and looked at the three people who were barely standing with complicated eyes. The poison sac he implanted in his body has already become different from the toxin of the Sansho fish after being nourished by his own chakra. Not only is it more toxic, but it also has the effect of spreading quickly and blocking chakra. The only disadvantage is that each time it is released, it takes more than 5 minutes to accumulate in the body before it can be released again. During the battlefield in the Kingdom of Wind, it was because this weakness was discovered by Chiyo, and Hanzo did not want to expose this weakness to everyone, that he had no choice but to return to the Kingdom of Rain. The aura of the Omegakure ninja had almost completely disappeared in the induction. Sanshoyu Hanzo looked at the three people in front of him who could barely even stand, with a flash of crazy murderous intent in his eyes. But the killing intent quickly disappeared and turned into a hint of sadness. He is afraid. He was not afraid of the three geniuses in front of him who could fight him back and forth at such a young age, nor was he afraid of how much of a threat they would pose to him as they grew up in the future. In the face of his ninja world's demigod strength, these geniuses who have not yet grown up can be destroyed with a backhand. What he was afraid of was the consequences for the Rain Hidden Village after killing these three Hokage disciples. The ninjas who followed him in the raid on the Konoha camp today were almost 80% of the ninjas in Omegakure village, and now almost all of them were lost here. If he kills these three young people, he will not be able to afford Konoha's crazy revenge, and Omegakure village will not be able to afford it. At this thought, the fighting spirit in Sanshoyu Hanzo's heart disappeared instantly. He reached out and took out a medicine bottle from his arms and threw it to the three of them. Tsunade stretched out her hand to take it, and looked at Sansho Hanzo who put away the scythe with confusion. This war may end here, and you Konoha will win the final victory. In this case, I will give you a way to survive. Jiraiya suddenly raised his head, gritting his teeth and looking at the towering Sansho Hanzo. We don't need your sympathy, come on. Fight again. Jiraiya struggled to get up and fight again, but finally fell limply into Tsunade's arms, breathing heavily. Sansho Hanzo looked at the stubborn Jiraiya expressionlessly, his eyes scanning the three of them. Letting you live is not completely unconditional. You three are the best ninjas of the younger generation I have ever seen. You can survive this environment and my attacks. You three are all qualified to have your own names. In the name of the demigod of the ninja world, I give you the name of the Sannin of Konoha. As the price of survival, from now on, you must live with the name you paid for with your life. When the three of them heard Sanshoyu Hanzo's words, their bodies felt like they were struck by lightning. Humiliation. Not willing to give in. Unable to refute. The three of them gritted their teeth and looked at this aloof man fiercely. As proud as they are, when have they ever suffered such humiliation? Sanshoyu Hanzo looked at the various emotions in the eyes of the three people, sighed helplessly in his heart, and was about to turn around and leave. You bullied my sister and teacher, and you just want to walk away like this. Demigod Sama. Psychic art. Immortal technique. Wood release. The birth of the tree world. The sky-covering forest rose from the ground in an instant, shrouding the huge Konoha camp and blocking all Sancho Hanzo's escape routes. Now Shu stood tall on top of Shingya, looking down at Hanzo the Sancho fish. Thanks for watching, please subscribe and support our channel.